live and boring everyone. So we might as well start the streaming for YouTube, right?
Senator Genevieve is with us, but she won't be really with us until we see her picture. She's listening until she can.
I am. I'm driving, so
Yeah.
I'm here, but I'm not really here until I get back to my office. So give me 20 minutes and I'll join you.
Yeah, with those darling kids that I saw in the picture. That's so cool.
Well, thank you.
We are now live.
Okay. Okay. And Jay, are you caught up enough to start the lead? Because it's going to go right into me presenting, so if you don't mind.
Well, we're going to do whale briefing first.
Right, but run the introductions and stuff while I just pull some things out here.
Oh, sure.
Please.
Sure. Well, welcome to the Marine Resources Committee. We're meeting today for several issues. We're going to have a briefing on whales. I'm not
Okay,
sure
hold
what
on.
this.
Something is wrong with the audio.
Are you open on more than one? No. Would someone else speak for just a moment so I can see if it's across
Hi,
the board?
can you hear me now?
You're fine. Okay, so it's specific to Representative McCreight.
Trying again. Are
Better.
we hearing it? Okay.
Good.
Okay. Welcome to Marine Resources Committee. Today we have a briefing on the Offshore Wind Initiative. We have 2 public hearings, and we have our scheduled meet and greets with several groups who have asked to come and spend about 15 minutes each with us. So we'll start with introductions. And I'm Jay McCreight, representing Harpswell, West Bath, and part of Brunswick in the House. And Representative Hutchins, would you introduce yourself?
There. Yes, good morning. My name is Sherm Hutchins. I represent District 131. That's the towns of Stockton Springs, Prospect, Verona Island, Orland, Dedham, Otis, and Penobscot.
Thank you. Representative Alley,
Yes,
could you introduce yourself?
yes, I'm Representative Alley from down to Jonesboro Beals area, District 138, along with 10 other communities: Millbridge, Cherryfield, Columbia Falls, Centerville, Jonesboro, Whitneyville, and Marshfield. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Rosen.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Kimberly Rosen, Senate District 8. My district is Bradley, Brewer, Bucksport, Burlington, Castine, Clifton, Dedham, Eddington, Great Pond, Holden, Lincoln, Lowell, Orland, Orrington, Penobscot, and Verona Island.
Sheesh.
Phew. Thank you. Representative Thorne.
Yes, good morning. My name is Jim Thorne, representative up in District 103, Carmel, Herman, and a small portion of Etna.
Thank you. Representative Bloom.
I'm Representative Lydia Bloom. I represent House District 3 in York.
Thank you. And Representative Crafts.
Hi, Lydia Crafts from House District 90. I represent Newcastle, Damascata, Bremen, Bristol, parts of South Bristol, parts of Noblesboro, and Monhegan and Louds Islands.
Thank you. Senator Maxman.
Hi, I'm Chloe Maxman, representing Senate District 13, which is all of Lincoln County except for Dresden plus Washington and Windsor.
And I think you're in 2 committees. Representative Hepler.
Morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Allison Hepler. I represent House District 53, which includes Aroustic, Georgetown, Phippsburg, Dresden, Woolwich, where I live, and part of Richmond.
And Representative McDonald, are you able to introduce yourself, or should we wait?
No, I'm here. Thank you. I'm Representative Genevieve McDonald. I represent House District 134, which is the offshore island of Penobscot. Bay and Western Princess Bay.
I think we get the gist. It was a little broken up, but we'll see you in a minute. And turning it back to Senator Mearmont.
Thank you, Representatives. And I'm Dave Mearmont, representing Senate District 12, which includes Appleton, Camden, Cree Haven, Cushing, Friendship, Hope, Isle of Ho, Matinicus, Muscle Ridge Islands, North Haven, Owl's Head, Rockland, Rockport, South Thomaston, St. George, Thomaston, Union, Vinyl Haven, and Warren. And great to have everyone here, and hopefully some folks listening out there. So today we're going to open with our offshore wind initiative briefing. It should be quite interesting. We will have some wind bills later, so do try to maybe see what you can get out of this and through other sources. We have many. We've heard these stories. We have a designed here in Maine windmill system that you'll be hearing more about if you haven't. There's also other types that have been in place, other parts of the world that we would be less excited about, some of us. So there's quite a range, and it's kind of slowly evolving, but we've had the time to look at different ways and ideas. And then we're going to listen carefully to all of the pros and cons. It's going to be a busy next several years regarding wind. And so to lead into that, well, we'll do that. So let's move on to the offshore wind, and Representative McCray, you have anything to say?
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. I neglected to introduce our clerk, Linda LaCroix.
Oh, yeah, we've been leaving them out.
I did again. And our analyst is Lynn Caswell, who both ably make sure we get things sort of right. As much
Yeah,
as
the heartbeat of the committee, everything. They're working all the time behind us, and it's amazing. So thank you both, and glad to introduce you. I'm glad you're in the little squares. All right, who's going to present Offshore Wind Initiative?
We do have a new member joining us.
Oh, yes.
Representative Stanley, do you want to introduce yourself?
Good morning. I'm Representative Stanley. I represent District 143. That's the Katahdin region.
And I do see a hand up, Representative Bloom.
Oh, yes.
Before we start.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Before we start, I just wanted to ask about Friday's letter about the whale rules. And did you have any follow-up, or should we discuss that later? I just want to make sure that gets discussed today.
Yes. Yeah, we are going to get to that after. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. So for whales, we know we have in attendees, we have
Meredith Mendelson. We have Meredith Mendelson, Cecilia Cunningham, and Dan Burgess are the people on my list, and they are here. Shall I bring all of those in?
Yes, please. And do we have Tom Abello as well? No?
I do not see Tom, but I'll look down the list in just a moment.
Okay.
Representative, I don't believe Tom Abello is going to be joining.
Okay, thank you. And we have Commissioner Kelleher and Deirdre Gilbert from the department, and now Meredith Mendelson has joined.
And as the commissioner pointed out during our first meeting today, he represents the governor's office on issues. I remember him saying that.
Here they come.
Yay, welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, so sorry, we've cut into your 3 minutes already, but go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Mearmont and Chair McCrayton. Through you to the committee, just to do a time check. Do we have 25 minutes? Is that about right? I saw you have things started at 9:30. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll
Other committees only give you 3, but we're so generous in Marine. It's amazing.
I've heard that. Thank you so much. We appreciate the time. So I'm Dan. Okay to just jump into it?
Please.
Yes, please.
Great. Okay, so I'm Dan Burgess. I'm the director of the Governor's Energy Office. You've heard from Commissioner Kelleher, who needs no introduction to this committee. I think same with Meredith from DMR. But I'm joined by Selena Cunningham, who is the deputy director of the Governor's Energy Office. And what we're going to do is provide you with a high-level overview of all of activities related to offshore wind, and happy to take questions throughout or at the end, or as they come up offline. So if it's okay, I'll share my screen. We've got a few slides to go through with you. Can you see those okay?
Yes.
Great. So just to set the context for the opportunity for offshore wind, as this committee knows, Maine has set very ambitious greenhouse gas reduction requirements set forth in legislation passed in 2019, and then which led to the development of the Climate Action Plan, which I believe many of you have been briefed on or are aware of, which requires in statute greenhouse gas reduction. From an emissions perspective, two of the biggest things that we can do are to reduce transportation emissions and reduce building emissions from buildings. One of the key strategies to do that is going to be to electrify, so to install heat pumps, to utilize more electric vehicles, to do more of those activities. And that is ultimately going to lead to a growth in the amount of electricity that the state is going to use. We share an electric grid with the other New England states, and it's managed by an entity called ISO New England. And just to kind of level set the energy picture of where we are, this chart on the top left, and I will share these so folks can see them. I'm happy to answer questions. This chart is if looking at the year 2000 going to the year 2019, this shows the electricity mix that our region is using. And just two trends that I want to point out for the committee is these two buckets here are coal and oil. About 20 years ago, 35% of the electricity that we were using came from coal or oil. That has decreased rapidly, and now less than 1% of the energy that we're using comes from coal and oil. So that's a good thing from a greenhouse gas reduction perspective, and shows really just a rapid transition. There's a lot of reasons for that. One is the price of natural gas has come down. Others are these plants were older and built a long time ago, but we're seeing this transition. But as we seek to use more electricity through building electrification, through vehicle electrification, we need to make sure that we've got renewable energy backing that up, or lower carbon or carbon-free energy backing coming onto the grid in time. And one way that we're doing that is through something called a renewable portfolio standard. And you can see Maine's RPS, or the amount of energy that we are required to use, or that our utilities are required to provide to you and I and to businesses, is going to be 80% by 2030. So that is one of the most, we are the purple line here, and the other New England states, we're one of the most ambitious renewable requirements in the region. So we have the trend of electrifying. We have the policies in place to ensure that we get renewable energy. And I set that context because offshore wind is increasingly going to become an opportunity for Maine to help meet those targets. It is becoming, as we'll get into, a very big opportunity for the state, states up and down the East Coast. But what is offshore wind? Offshore wind is, these are kind of pictures of the foundations, but they are turbines which are set in the water, and then typically they've been connected to the ground. But as you well know, the Gulf of Maine is deep, and if we're going to develop offshore wind in the Gulf of Maine, we're going to rely on floating technology. There are multiple different kinds of floating technology, as Chair Mearmont indicated. Fortunately, as we'll get into a little bit later, the University of Maine has developed a technology which can be made right here in the state and can be deployed using local content and creating local jobs. But there are thousands of megawatts. Yes, sir.
Excuse me. I won't keep interrupting, but this is such a great place for you to point out with the screen that you have up. Where would the full-size UMaine turbine fit in the scope of those turbines? And if you were going to say that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure. We've got some more slides on it later, Senator. I'm happy. It looks more like this.
Okay.
this floating technology here. So they're made out of concrete, can be made in the port and towed out to deep waters. So the ingenuity is that it's made of concrete, so it can be made locally and doesn't rely on as many components from which can't be produced here. But what we've seen in around the world and here in the East Coast of the United States is most of the development has been in shallower waters. So for Maine, it actually puts us in a good position to be a world leader when it comes to floating technology. This is not just a Maine centered idea. If you look at in Europe and Asia, you are seeing dozens to thousands of megawatts of projects where the UK has a goal to have every home powered by offshore wind by 2030. And so you're seeing kind of these companies and these aggressive goals. Also, along with these new platform technologies that we've seen are just a significant growth in the size of the turbines. And that allows for these turbines to produce more energy more efficiently. And so the technology is advancing, therefore allowing these to produce more energy. This is actually, so this is an 8 megawatt turbine hub where GE has a 15 megawatt, which is larger. So you can just see these are very large structures. And the other good news is that the cost of these are coming down. So thanks in large part to the investments being made overseas and now being made in the United States, we're seeing technology costs drop. And that has been much for the fixed bottom, but we're also seeing those costs projected to drop for the floating platforms as well. And frankly, it's actually projected longer term that floating will be cheaper than the fixed bottom because they don't require the as much expensive equipment to install and to operate. You don't need a boat a jack boat, which can has to make contact with the ground. They can be built and then towed out. So if you think about, so the offshore wind is sited in the United States primarily through the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management. That is a department or an agency underneath the Interior Department. They're responsible for identifying wind energy areas or lease areas in federal waters. And as this committee knows, state waters are 3 miles within Maine's coast, and then the federal waters are outside of that. So the federal government has a process which they identify wind energy areas, and they've done that up and down the East Coast. You can see all the way down from over here is in North Carolina, all the way up to Massachusetts. They have identified 15 or so wind energy areas. They've gone out to auction. Companies have bid on them, and they are poised for offshore wind development. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And what you're seeing is that we've gone from, just a handful of projects to now close to 30,000 megawatts in the pipeline along the East Coast. And those aren't just targets. There are more than 10,000 megawatts that have contracts. So these are projects that are slated to be built up and down the East Coast. They are, the good thing is offshore wind is close to load, close to electric load. So that's where, the most people live. They are a great resource during the winter. As when we're all home and turning our appliances on, they match up well with our peaking system. And you can see that Maine is actually in a really good place for offshore wind. We have world-class wind resources. This is a map from the National Renewable Energy Association, which shows that Maine has kind of unparalleled wind resources off the coast of the Gulf of Maine. So what is our approach to offshore wind? We want to take a measured and deliberate approach. We want to be as forthright answering questions and exploring opportunities. We want to engage with our regional partners, which we're doing, and then we want to listen to and hear from all stakeholders, and we'll get into how we're doing that. The governor launched the Maine Offshore Wind Initiative as the umbrella for the work that is happening here. So I want to go quickly through these, but that is the umbrella initiative for the work that we're doing for offshore wind. And we were fortunate enough to receive a federal grant last fall to develop a 10-year offshore wind roadmap. So the US EDA provided funding to our office to bring stakeholders together and to outline a long-term plan for Maine, so how we can to figure out how we can best take advantage of the opportunities for offshore wind. We are in the process of finalizing the design and structure of that, and hope to launch that in the coming weeks. So I mentioned that the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management is responsible for siting offshore wind in federal waters. So they do that by conducting these task forces. So really trying to get all government entities in a room to identify what issues might be present and to look at opportunities for lease areas. That process generally takes a couple of years to complete. Then you go through a couple of year leasing process. Environmental site assessments are done. It takes up to 5 years, and then once a project is slated to go forward, you're looking at 2 years for construction. So this is not this federal process is not one that happens quickly. We had our first Gulf of Maine federal task force meeting back in December of 2019, and we have not met since. There's been kind of COVID happened. We were planning to meet last summer. But so that meeting another meeting has not happened. But in the interim, the state has indicated that we're going to pursue what is known as a research lease. And Selena's going to dig into what that means. But before we do, I did also want to note that with this offshore wind comes not just energy, which is good for good for our climate and energy goals, but also economic opportunity. And one study showed that there was a $70 billion supply chain opportunity, particularly up and down the East Coast, as we're seeing such rapid development. And we're working with the Department of Transportation to finalize a study focused on the opportunities with Searsport. And I just wanted to note that was happening as well. All of these developments up and down the East Coast have come with port infrastructure opportunities and port development opportunities, and we're seeing an opportunity for that for Maine. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Selena to kind of talk about, where we are and where we're going, particularly with regards to the research array, which is different from the kind of the overall federal commercial scale project. So with that, I will turn it over to Selena.
Thanks, Dan, and good morning. So as Dan mentioned, we have a process to work on our long-term planning for how to create opportunities for offshore wind and also address challenges that may come as we seek to build this new industry in the state. At the same time, we are working to taking a phased approach to advancing the project and specifically some of the technology pieces. And we've had the phased approach started in 2013 with the 1/8 scale pilot project off of Castine using the University of Maine technology, and which was a very highly successful pilot project. The next step in this phased approach is this full scale University of Maine platform technology, a 10 megawatt series demonstration project off of Monhegan Island that is under development. It's a private process with New England Aquaventus, a company, and University of Maine. And so as the state has been considered, and then we'll talk about the research array, which you see here, and then the future of our phased approach is large scale commercial offshore wind projects that the federal government will lease and oversee and be in charge of managing. The state does have a role on the task force, but it's really a federal process. Next slide. So this is just a visual of the technology from the University of Maine that Dan mentioned, and Dr. Habib Dagher could show you if you were physically in the room all the components and how the pieces fit together. But it's, as Dan mentioned, designed to be able to be constructed here in Maine and at the port and then deployed. So from an economics perspective, it has a lot of promise, and then it's also receiving, I think, a strong support from the global offshore wind community, as we've seen investment from two major offshore wind companies recently. Next slide. So as we think about how we want to go ahead in advancing this technology and advancing the opportunity for offshore wind, thinking of that phased approach, we think that there's an opportunity for Maine to really be in the driver's seat of determining how offshore wind should be pursued in the Gulf of Maine. And we have a number of opportunities. One is the economic piece we talked about. We talked about the technology piece. The more that we can continue to test and deploy that technology, the lower the costs will be over the long term. And then the third, and perhaps one of the most important pieces that you will be interested in, is how are we going to coexist with the existing uses in the marine environment, recognizing that Maine's lobster industry and other fisheries are second to none, and we want to make sure that as we grow this industry, we find a way to coexist. So the state has, the governor in November announced that she's going to pursue this state-led research array. So it will be a state lease from the federal government to pursue a smaller scale research project with multiple turbines in order to find ways to minimize impacts while also giving us an opportunity to pursue the local manufacturing and the economic components. Next slide. So it'll be 12 or fewer turbines, and the area that we will, or the lease will be 16 miles or smaller. We have not yet identified a site. I'll go into that in a little bit more detail in a moment. Next slide. So again, the state of Maine with the Governor's Energy Office, Dan and myself are leading this effort. We're partnering with New England Aquaventus and the University of Maine on their technology. And we're really coordinating across the spectrum when it comes to federal and state entities, as well as with stakeholders, to utilize the expertise of as many folks as possible to make this project a success. And in terms of the timeline, we are in the early stages of this project. It'll be 5 years or so before we have anything in the water. With the circled area there shows that right now we are engaging with stakeholders to make some important decisions around where this site will be located and what our research priorities will be. And so that's the work we're doing now, but the stakeholder engagement process will continue throughout this project. So in December, we held some webinars and had some initial conversation with stakeholders about this concept. And there were, I'll tell you, people have strong opinions about offshore wind, and there are strong concerns from some stakeholders, which we hear and are working to try to answer questions and engage and discuss and try to minimize any impacts that this will have on the fishing industry. But one of the things that we did hear was that there was concern with offshore wind projects in state waters. We also heard that there was concern with the time that we had announced of late winter, early spring for submitting an application to the federal government. And so the governor heard these comments and concerns and sent a letter to the members of the fishing industry and others, and communicated that her support for a 10-year moratorium on new offshore wind projects in state waters. She added a few months to the time for the lease application process and committed to reviewing applicable state laws. So trying to hear these concerns and be responsive while also continuing to pursue what we think is a prudent step in our offshore wind planning. So the state has taken some initial steps in identifying where the area will be. We've identified a general area of interest. This is the initial siting criteria that we've set, and this project will be 20 to 40 miles offshore, and connecting the southern half of Maine, which is in closer proximity to our greatest load needs, and also where there is available high voltage interconnection points. And then working to minimize conflicts and avoid areas of highly trafficked areas and fishing grounds to the extent possible. Next slide. So this is a map. We have a lot of information, including interactive maps, FAQs, and other information on our website. So I encourage you to check it out or send it to others if there are questions. But this general area is the area of interest that we're looking at. The blue dot is what is 16 square miles. So that's what we're trying to locate within this area. We know that there are areas of great conflict within this. There are shipping lanes, there are DoD conflict areas, there are also very important fishing grounds within this. So while we recognize that there is no perfect spot for this project, in some people's minds, we are trying to get as much input as possible to minimize impacts and find a location that would be workable for this project. Next slide. And how we're going to do that is, so the state in number 1 has set some baseline criteria. We're continuing to gather available data from experts, fishermen, the federal government, anyone and scientists who have input in terms of the available data. We're collecting that, and then we'll continue to engage with the fishing industry and others to narrow down the site that the state will select for its application, which will submit to the federal government for approval. And so this, and I'll just say that we'll submit the application for approval. However, it will require additional permits for any sort of construction on the site. So this is a first step of just identifying the lease area. Part of this project is a huge component of it is our pursuing research and designing the research and citing the project with research in mind. And so that's what's driving this project and will be throughout the entire operations of the project. We have some initial themes that we've developed, and we'll be working with stakeholders over the coming months to strengthen those themes. And after we submit the application, we'll stand up a formal consortium with diverse interests at the table to make sure that we have a strategic approach to the research that we want to pursue that will be open to others and meet a variety of needs from the potential for research in the area. Next slide. And these are just a few of the broad themes that we've developed that we'll be looking at as we pursue this project. Next slide. So we held a workshop in February where we went over a number of these details that's recorded on our website. We're continuing to hold webinars and work sessions for people who want to delve into more detail. We're hopeful as the COVID numbers drop and we're able to get outside more. We want to have, hopefully we're able to have direct engagement with fishermen in person in addition to the webinar work. And then we want to make sure that we bring different stakeholders together to hear different perspectives on the conflicts and opportunities for siting this project. And that's the link to our website with more information on that.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we didn't ask questions along the way. Committee, do you have any questions? And I just discovered, maybe everybody else already knew this, but to chair a meeting, and then when the screen share is up, I can't see the members to know if they're asking questions. But I did figure out if I put the presentation on a different computer, and then I could see you all in grid view still, but I still didn't see any hands. So now's the time. Now I see some. We'll start with Representative Thorne, Representative Crafts, then Representative Bloom is the order it comes up.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Burgess or Ms. Cunningham, either one. I know that recently the governor issued a 10-year moratorium on wind power in Maine. Am I correct? And could you elaborate on what that means?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Representative. So the governor stated her intent to pass legislation that would provide a moratorium on new development in state waters. So the focus is on state waters, where majority of the fishing, majority of the visual conflicts would be, to really kind of move the focus to federal waters, where this research array would be cited. So as the target was on state water development, on new state water development.
And Mr. Chair, if I could clarify.
Go ahead.
And what is considered state waters?
Thanks, Representative. Within the state waters are the coast to 3 miles outside of the coast. So I'm not saying that correctly, but within 3 miles of Maine's coast.
Thank you.
Representative Crafts?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Burgess, I had a quick question. You had indicated that the cost of per kilowatt hours in 2030 for floating turbines would be 6 cents. Do you have any estimated costs, current costs of what that would look like?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Representative. So the slide that you're referring to, the information comes from the National Renewable Energy Lab, which is a lab that is housed within the Department of Energy and does, nonpartisan research and analysis. That study shows the price dropping based on certain market conditions and the amount of development. So with development, the price drops as serial production can increase. The cost right now really depends on the turbine selection, how far out in the water, so how much cabling is needed. So I don't have a specific, this will cost X per kilowatt hour right now, as that will really be determinant of where, what technology, and many of those items. If I could also say that we just completed a renewable portfolio standard study, which utilized that information and showed that particularly it's an important reason to invest now to do this research of the new technology and how it will work in the water, but also to continue to drive costs down going forward. So our RPS study did show that it could play an important role for the state.
Thank you. Representative Bloom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nice to see you, Mr. Burgess. We represent a lot of lobstermen, and the fishing industry and their engagement in this planning and analysis stage for the site location seems to be extremely important. I would like to know more about the timeline of that, how much you have done, to what extent are you talking to the lobstermen? Are you only talking to lobstermen concerned in the areas that you're looking at, or are you talking to all fishermen? Because I think there's a lot of concern and a lot of misinformation out there. And we really need to, especially at this stage in the planning and analysis, is really engage our fishing community. So where are we in that right now?
Yeah, thank you, Representative. I think that is a really important question. I'll let Selena maybe talk a little bit more about the details, but or Meredith, but the initial launch of this, we held 4 webinars open to the public, all the same. So just an opportunity to hear the details and the plans. Throughout, we had several hundred people join, ask really important questions. And I think we've taken that feedback in along the way. But Selena, do you want to talk a little bit more about the plans going forward for that?
Sure. So yes, as Dan said, we are recognize that we really want to engage with with fishing industry leaders and individual fishermen to help understand questions, concerns, and help gather information that we don't have in terms of better and worse places to site this project. We also think from a long-term standpoint that working to the extent that people are willing to work together on the full life of this project will also be beneficial for the state, but that's a kind of future ongoing effort. In terms of conversations we've had now, we've tried to cast a wide net in terms of reaching out to people that go beyond the direct area that has been identified. We talked to associations. We have tried to reach individuals, but we also recognize that COVID and Zoom make it very challenging, and also that as your committee knows extremely well, there are a lot of conflicting other issues that the fishing industry is addressing right now, and so we're certainly mindful of that. We work very closely with DMR to try to make sure that we can be creative in finding ways to have these conversations and are open to ways to work with stakeholders. We're planning on standing up work sessions to bring fishing industry members together that are interested in engaging DMR is also open to one-on-one conversations where if people feel more comfortable that way. And then I just echo that if there are other ways that we should be reaching out to people, we certainly want to do that. Meredith, do you have anything to add?
Thanks, Selena, and thank you, Representative, for the question. Selena touched on a lot of the things that I would have said, but I would just echo her sentiment that certainly, as we have been trying to do this at a time when people are focused on whale rules and through online platform technology, which is not always the easiest way to communicate, especially on challenging subjects. It has been difficult. I think we've had some positive interactions. Staff have been having conversations one-on-one with individual members of the fishing industry. As Selena said, both those who fish within the area of interest as well as those from other places. Certainly the commissioner and I have had conversations as well with people around different topics, and we're talking with industry leaders as well. We do hope to be able, as Selena said, to get out and start having some conversations in small groups, on the docks as the weather warms up and COVID numbers get a little bit better. And I think hopefully the way things are going right now, we'll maybe be able to do that in the next month or so. But it has certainly been challenging. The industry being involved is critical to the success of this project, I think, has some potential to really inform how we advise future development. I think we have already learned some lessons about how and when to engage the industry for a successful project. But typically, these projects often are much further along in their development if they are a commercial project before the industry is engaged. So we see this as an opportunity to try to work to mitigate and avoid impacts to the maximum extent if we can get that engagement from the industry on the front end.
May I follow up, please, Mr.
Yes.
Chair?
Go ahead.
What's the new timeline then? If because I know that you wanted to find a site and go through start with the lease process. So what's now the new timeline for this planning and analysis stage?
Thank you, Representative. So there is not a kind of set final date for which, that we've said has to happen on this day. I think that the initial schedule that we had laid out was for a late winter type of time frame, and in the governor's letter, she committed to having a few more months added to that. So we don't have a, by X date we're going to do it, but we really want the process to drive that for us. And so we're setting up those work sessions and more webinars now to get that feedback and have those conversations. But we're aiming to still move forward because we think, well, I neglected to mention that this development happening to the south of us in the federal process really does show that offshore wind, there's a ton of interest in offshore wind in the Gulf of Maine, and this research array approach allows us as a state to be in the driver's seat. And so there is some urgency to getting an application to the federal government for consideration so that we can say this research array is the process that we want to go through and the project we want to go through. But I don't have a specific, it must be filed by X date.
Thank you. And that's such a great reminder for outside 3 miles. You already know if you fish inside and out, that we work on rules for inside. We fight for things going on inside 3 miles. And on the other side, the federal government can impose things as we've seen recently. So getting ahead of it and having an influence is a wonderful thing. I next have Representative Hutchins, then Representative Crafts, and Representative Alley, and then Thorne. And that's the order so far. And go ahead, Representative Hutchins.
Good morning. Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. A couple of questions as to one of them was the experimental windmill that was in Castine Harbor a few years ago was said that it was successful. I suppose that depends on what you're looking for. It didn't make any money. I was in Castine Harbor every day that it was there. And the Maritime Academy students did the maintenance on it. So even that part of it, probably was a freebie because it was charged off to the school. But my point is there are other things I'm sure they found out how they worked. One of them, hopefully, is what happens with the vibration under a windmill. I know in Canada, just north of the Dakotas, windmills up there kill 3 to 4 acres of land that they set on. Now, maybe they're an older generation windmill that vibration is worse. And when I say kill it, it means all the bugs leave those areas. And so everything dies for 3 or 4 acres. So all the farmers that have them on their property have this dead 3 or 4 acres underneath every one. That's concerning in the water, I would think. We were told that 6 cents, we may end up with electricity for around 6 cents. How much subsidy goes around with that before the 6 cents actually works? I'm assuming there's still going to be a lot of government subsidy somewhere, even at the 6 cents. And then the next, we're talking about this not going in the water probably for 5 years. The fishermen are going to tell you that in 5 years, they've got to have 50% of their gear out of the water if rules that the commissioner is telling us come through. And that's going to seem very coincidental that now you're going to be able, someone is going to be able to put electric cables, anchor lines in the water, in the whale areas where they're having to take everything out of the water. So I think getting a buy-in from fishermen on this proposal is going to be somewhere between 0 and none. And at this point, that's where mine is also. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative. And I will maybe defer to my marine resources colleagues for some of the answers. I do want to say this: the 6 cent number by NREL, from my understanding, is there are not subsidies included within that. I will note that the federal government just passed, and this is the prior administration signed, tax credit for offshore wind. So there is a current offshore wind tax credit, which will phase down in a few years. And so there is an opportunity to utilize that tax credit to ensure that the federal tax credit to ensure that, we're getting the power coming to the state is more cost effective. But I see Commissioner Kelleher with his hand up. So I don't know.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Pat, you want to take that?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Thank you, Senator. And Representative Hutchinson, one of your questions about kind of the vibrations, what happens underneath, it's one of the many, many, many what if questions that we have out there surrounding offshore wind. That is one of the major focuses that the department has to determine what are the research needs we have around offshore wind to make sure we can answer those questions, because a lot of times we can't. And that's the benefit of starting with a research array, so we can get a better understanding of what are the issues associated with an offshore wind turbine. How do we mitigate around those? I compare this all the time to hydropower relicensing. When the department is engaged with a dam that is being relicensed, where we have to look at what are the issues associated with passage. How do we mitigate for that? How do we work around those particular issues? And this is the same thing. So DMR is very much engaged with the industry and I do want to make sure it's clear. When we say the industry, we're talking about the groundfish industry, the lobster industry, the party charter boat industry, the herring industry. Everybody is coming to the table. We're having individual conversations with all of them. Understand what those what if questions are and how do we address those with what our research plan will be. So that's all work that's ongoing.
Okay, and I believe it was Representative Crafts then, Allie, but yes, go ahead, Representative Crafts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Cunningham, I just wanted a point of clarification. You had mentioned, and I believe this is what you were referring to, the Monhegan site, that there were 2 private investors for the demonstration, the 10 megawatt demonstration. And I just wanted to clarify, is that Diamond Offshore and Aquaventus?
So the University of Maine is partnering with an entity called New England Aquaventus, which is owned by 2 companies. One is RWE Renewables and the other is Diamond Offshore. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Okay, and Representative Valley? If you could unmute Representative Valley, please. Representative Valley, you're muted. Okay, we'll come back to Representative Valley. Representative Thorne, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to appreciate everybody who's here today, Mr. Burgess and Ms. Cunningham, Ms. Mendelson, and the commissioner to answer our questions and help bring us up to speed. Can't apologize for not being an expert because there's a lot about wind power that we all don't understand. And I've got about 12 questions that I've pared down to two. And one goes back to, I guess this is going forward, and I understand it's going forward, even though it's fairly divided on support. But I wonder if you could tell me what the basic advantage of looking at offshore wind. Obviously, it has as many challenges as being on the land because you're dealing with a federal lease, you're dealing with opposition from fishermen, you're talking about having to retrieve federal tax credits and so forth. Maintenance costs obviously are obviously more out to sea, 20 to 40 miles than they would be inland. But what do you consider to be the most beneficial or advantage to offshore wind versus land-based wind?
Thank you, Representative. That's a great question. So there are a few benefits. One is that what's called the capacity factor is higher for offshore wind. So the amount of energy that it can produce per turbine is higher, just given the stronger wind resources the further out you go in the Gulf of Maine. So more energy per turbine can be produced that way. And also the correlation with winter peak. So again, the amount of electricity that we are using during the winter can spike. It's a cold day. We are at home. We all have our appliances on, and so it correlates well with the winter electricity peak, given its profile. I think it's, though, in my mind, not necessarily an either or. Maine is home to the most onshore wind in New England. A report that we just put out indicated that onshore wind still can play a very important role for the state. So it will likely take some combination thereof of many resources to help us meet our targets.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so Representative Valley, I see you figured out how to unmute. It's going to be important because if I hear any stray noise, I mute everyone except the current speaker. And so it looks like you've got it figured out for how to unmute in the future. And it's your turn, and go ahead.
Yes, sir. I would like to ask a question about this. Stakeholders want to know the impact of the windmills in the project that's going to be out between, according to Cunningham, is 20 to 40 miles offshore, which is where most of the lobster fishing boats and have their trawls is in that area. Hutchins did a good job explaining the situation up in southern Maine, but this is out here in down east Maine. Okay.
Okay, someone will take that.
So Representative Valley, right now there is no projects within the Down East area. At one point, there was a company called, I believe they were called Trident, that was looking at developing in state waters, in territorial waters from MDI all the way to Eastport, a very large array of turbines. We've been vocally opposing that particular project. In fact, that's one of the major reasons that the governor wanted to see a 10-year moratorium on wind in the territorial waters and state waters.
Thank you.
Great. Representative Bloom.
Thank you. I understand that that there's a relationship now between Maine and Great Britain, I believe, because they do a lot of floating turbines there, and they coexist with the fishermen there. And I was wondering if, in terms of floating turbines and fishermen, that is something that are you learning that from other countries that are doing the same thing? Are you learning what the potential issues are, how the communities work together? And are you getting anything out of that relationship, I suppose, is my question.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Representative. And just for context, the governor signed a memorandum of understanding with the United Kingdom to coordinate and collaborate on kind of future energy technologies, especially offshore wind. I think we are in active conversations with them about how to share information. I'll let Meredith follow up, but I don't think that they would say that they've done it perfectly, right? But I do think it's an opportunity for us to learn from what they've done. But Meredith, I don't know if you want to jump in.
Yeah, thank you, Dan, and thank you, Representative Bloom, for the question. Yeah, we have been working with some members of the UK fishing community informally for a number of years. I actually was lucky to go on a information sharing trip to the UK back in 2012 when I first started with the department, to understand a little bit about how some of the early farms that were being sited, they're all fixed platform largely off of the UK. The only other floating technology is being tested off of Scotland right now, and it's a small array, at least for what's in the water at this point. There is also, obviously, with the new initiative and MOU that the governor has signed, an opportunity to increase that work. We have, again, been through other partnerships working with different industry leaders in the UK to understand some of the hurdles that they've come across and how they've addressed them. It's been incredibly informative. I actually was just in touch yesterday with a gentleman who leads a process between the Crown Estate and the fishing industry in the UK to talk about some work that they're thinking about and how we might collaborate with them on that. So I think there's a tremendous amount of possibility there, and they've been very interested to share their experience and help, share information both with the industry as well as with the state.
Thank you. Also a reminder, this is the very beginning, and we also know that passing information, as the department was saying, there needs to be a lot of one-on-one, and there will be. They already know how they need to do it, because one bit of misinformation can spread through fishing communities and industries, and then enough people say it, and then they believe that it's news, and we just saw that through a whole election cycle. So everybody knows that and are going to be present and are going to be talking to, first of all, the people that are leaders in the industry, but then they're going to get down to each individual who has questions. So I have Representative Hutchins. I don't want to cut anybody off, but where this is the very beginning of the whole thing, you could follow up directly with the department or the energy office. There are a lot of ways. That's not to say don't ask it right now, but I would like to move on to some other business we have. And Representative Hutchins, go ahead.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. I speak again because we're talking about the experts in the field of windmills. We have windmills and solar are undependable electricity. Texas just proved that. And so rather than spending so much time on things that aren't going to be as dependable, why aren't we focusing more on hydro or even nuclear, which is both? They're both safe and they're both very dependable. I guess it's because we can see those and we think we can't see the windmills. I guess that maybe is what it comes down to. And one other point is these people that are telling us how the windmills work, and I'm sure they're dedicated to their work. But how many of them have spent a day or two offshore knocking ice off a boat so that it's not going to capsize and come back, before they come back shore, so that they fully understand what the conditions are like offshore? And these windmills aren't going to be able to come in and melt off. And when they start icing up, they will have to be shut off because they'd be so out of balance that there'd be no choice. They'd have to be stopped.
What's the question there? And who
Well,
did you want to answer it?
The question is, why are we focusing so much time and energy on something that is considered by many people, I think, undependable electricity, rather than spending it on things that are more dependable? Thank you.
Thank you. That sounds like Mr. Burgess.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Representative. A lot in there, but I will just say that the current state law is for 80% of our energy to come from renewable energy by 2030. That is in line with states across the country. More than about 30 states have what is called the Renewable Portfolio Standard, which drives that development. There will be we will need to invest in things like energy storage. We do have hydro. We do have those technologies that can deal with the intermittency. I think what you're seeing is around the world. This is not just Maine, up and down the East Coast and in Europe, United Kingdom, 2030, all of their powers for every home is going to come from offshore wind. That is their target. And so I think happy to kind of follow up offline with some of the more technical specific things that you asked, but just want contextually, this is happening around us. It's state law that 80% of our renewables come from renewable energy, which includes some of the technologies that you've mentioned.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. Well, knowing how accessible your office, DMR is, and that we're just at the beginning of this, the meetings will be taking place the same as I have all up and down the coast for the important whale rules, everything that affects the coast for all the people of Maine. We are going to jump in and get all the information, and it's going to take a while. So thanks for this first glimpse on the Marine Resources Committee from the governor's office and the department. And I think that helps a lot because we will be seeing some bills down the road here. So everybody's happy. We are going to move on to some public hearings. Great, thanks for joining us. And we'll let Representative Falkingham introduce himself. He just came in. If you're there. Well, there you are. Okay, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Can you hear me?
Well, I can hear you.
Hi. I apologize for coming over late. I was presenting the bill in agriculture up on my desktop here, coming to you from my cell phone. But I am Representative Billy Bob Falkingham. I see it says William on here, but I'll have to change that. But I am Representative Billy Bob Falkingham from House District 136. And yeah, just kind of coming in late here. So good morning.
Great. Thank you for that heads up that we had. We knew you were going to be late because of bill presentations. And that's usually the opening of our greeting here about public hearings, that all the members have bills in other committees that go on at the same time as ours. So they'll come in and out and they do catch up on the testimony. There's nobody who isn't informed before they vote. As when I caught Representative Bloom a little short the other day, and I do apologize for that, Representative Bloom, not giving you a chance to review what we'd done while you were testifying in another bill. So I will try never to do that to anyone, but I particularly apologize to you for that. It's all new every session here. So we're going to move on to public hearings. Representative McCray, since I'm presenting, I can let you take over, or I can read the script first, or what would you like?
Well, why don't I give the script a try?
Good.
My
Excellent.
first time giving
All
this
yours.
run. Okay. Again, welcome to the Joint Standing Committee on Marine Resources. We're assembled electronically today for the purposes of inviting public comment on legislation. I want to give you some information related to the fact that this meeting is being conducted using an electronic format. The meeting is currently being live streamed on YouTube. This means anyone who is a participant in the meeting via Zoom can be seen and also heard if their microphone is unmuted. People on the Zoom meeting waiting to testify cannot be seen or heard until they are called upon to speak. This meeting will be recorded and available to view on the committee's YouTube channel soon after this meeting has concluded. And let's see, we've already introduced ourselves. We don't need to do that again. If you need to change your name, please do that. Linda, our clerk, can do that, I believe, Linda, if people need help with that. Yes. And especially reps and senators, if you can add that to your name, it helps the public know who's who. So if you're waiting to come in on a particular bill, it's interesting. You're in the waiting room right now. You'll be led into the meeting, but it may seem like you've been dropped, but don't panic. You haven't been. It'll just take a second, but then you'll be in the meeting. And at that point, everyone can see you. And if you're unmuted, they can hear you. So just a disclaimer that, as you may have noticed, this is new and we're stumbling our way through it as best we can. I would just make a reminder, we've talked about this before, but the chat function is, say, if, for example, you need the clerk to help you with name change or something, but not for substantive discussion. All questions of persons testifying will be made through the chair. So as we have been doing, raise your hand, your virtual hand. I think we've all had the experience of being impatient and waving one way or the other. We'll see you and get your give you a chance to speak. And as you just saw, in order of the hands going up, we were able to do that. If you have a follow-up question, that's absolutely fine. After the presentation, Senator Mearmont will present the first bill. We'll ask for co-sponsors. They'll go first. Then we'll ask for people who are testifying for the bill, people testifying against the bill, and people testifying neither for nor against the bill, but who wish to give information. If you're, we would ask you to state your name and place of residence or the organization you represent, if any. If there are no questions from the members, we'll return you to that waiting room, to the attendee portion of the Zoom, and call on the next person registered. And I think that covers just to remind everyone that the meeting is being broadcast and recorded, and that you can be heard during, we're live streaming, so everything that is said is hearable. So please just keep that in mind. You also, those submitting testimony, just as when we're live, testimony is public and goes into the public record. It will, in Zoom world, be posted on the website for people to be able to find. Please keep your microphone muted until you're called upon to speak. And we'll open the public hearing with Senator Mearmont on LD 338 regarding the Maine Lobster Marketing Collaborative. Senator Mearmont.
Thank you, Representative McCreight, and I'll use this line, and distinguished members of the Marine Resources Committee. I don't get to say that very often, but it's part of my testimony. But I've already introduced myself. So I'm introducing LD 338 for the purpose of changing the current law regarding the Maine Lobster Marketing Collaborative. The MLMC was established as a temporary program that was due to end this year. The MLMC has been a demonstrable success over the years, and this bill allows it to continue to serve the industry by making the changes in statute that will allow it to continue. It allows the surcharges to licenses to remain the same going forward. And now I'll turn it over to the department who can give you the details, since it was their initiative that got it here. And I'll answer questions, but they'll probably be incomplete answers. Thank you. And Representative.
Any questions for Senator Miramont? Seeing none. Commissioner Kelleher?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Senator Miramont, Representative McCrate, members of the Joint Standing Committee on Marine Resources. My name is Patrick Kelleher. I'm the Commissioner at the Maine Department of Marine Resources. I'm testifying today on behalf of the department in support of LD 338. This is a department bill, and the department is very grateful for Senator Miramont's willingness to sponsor this bill on our behalf. The Maine's lobster industry has an organization responsible for marketing promotion of Maine lobster. And it's been there since the early 1990s, when the Maine Lobster Promotional Council was originally created. Over time, the council was instrumental in raising awareness of Maine lobster, but its efforts were constrained by a very modest budget for marketing, promotion, which was about $300,000 annually. The council was reinvented in 2013 through a legislative change establishing the Maine Lobster Marketing Collaborative. At that time, the budget for the collaborative was substantially increased through the creation of larger surcharges on harvester, dealer, and processor licenses. Beginning in 2013, these surcharges increased each year for 3 years, culminating in a surcharge level that currently provides approximately $2.25 million annually towards the efforts to grow demand for Maine's lobster, both live as well as a variety of value-added products. The collaborative was reviewed and renewed at its current funding levels by the legislature back in 2017. Under current law, the LMNC will sunset in October of 2021. This bill would remove the repeal and make the license surcharges ongoing at their current level. The impetus to reinvent and strengthen efforts around marketing of Maine lobsters that led to the creation of the MLMC was the challenges the industry experienced around the unexpected glut of product in the early summer of 2012. This resulted in a crash of the boat price and the ongoing discussions that eventually created the collaborative. New and previously unimaginable challenges across this past spring, and many of the major markets for lobster, restaurants, casinos, and cruise lines were shuttered overnight due to the pandemic. The collaborative responded by shifting its focus, expanding retail markets, and encouraging consumers to prepare lobster at home. Maine's lobster industry has a landed value of nearly $500 million annually and generates additional economic activity of roughly $1.5 billion. It is critical that this industry, which is so integral in the economic health of Maine's coastal communities, has a mechanism to promote its product and buffer it against changing market conditions. In addition to the promotional efforts, the collaborative plays an important role communicating Maine's message of sustainability and long-standing commitment to the conservation measures that have sustained the resource for generations. I'm sure that Mary Ann LaCroix, the executive director of the collaborative, will be pleased to provide the committee with details of explanation of their recent programs as well as the future plans for this session. I encourage you to support their continued efforts through the passage of this legislation, and thank you for consideration. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the committee might have.
Any questions for Commissioner Kelleher from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you, Commissioner.
You're welcome. You notice how I passed that off to the director of the collaborative, almost like the legislature would pass it off to me. I thought that was kind of brilliant.
I thought that was great. Yeah, well done.
Thank you.
And I'd like to invite Mary Ann LaCroix to testify on the collaborative next. I see you are with us, and if you could unmute.
I am with you, and I was wondering if we could allow Brian Langley to testify prior to me.
That's fine. Okay, I see the Honorable Brian Langley is here as well. Would you like to go ahead?
Thank you. Hopefully everybody can hear me.
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Everybody's getting used to the Zoom stuff. And the reason why Marianne asked me to go before her is that saving the better part for you know, that she's going to be batting sort of cleanup in this a little bit. Senator Miramont and Representative McCray and esteemed members of the Marine Resources Committee. I am Brian Langley and I live in Ellsworth. I served in the legislature from 2008 to 2018, and I served 2 terms on this committee, and also represented Maine on the Atlantic States Marines Fishery Commission for 6 years. I also own and operate the Union River Lobster Pod in downtown Ellsworth. I'm here to testify in support of LD 338, an act to amend the law governing Maine Lobster Marketing Collaborative. After terming out of the legislature, I was asked to serve on the Maine Lobster Marketing Collaborative and subsequently nominated to chair the committee. I've served for just over a year now, and wow, has the playing field changed. The focus a year ago was on promoting lobster to major restaurants, hotels, commercial food service suppliers, and cruise ships. Early in 2020, the pandemic exploded and the restaurant, hotel, and commercial food service pipeline collapsed. Luckily for Maine lobster catchers, dealers had strong relationships with supermarkets, and with quick pivot, the marketing firm that works with the collaborative aimed the focus on the home consumer. Now, my conversations with dealers in my area confirmed that early on, lobster sales slowed, but the pipeline was indeed moving. Lobsters were being sold. And as the summer progressed, the price for lobster held up. Maine was very fortunate to have had in place a marketing plan and a national agency to continue to promote Maine lobster. So if the pandemic isn't enough, the issue with right whales continues to pose a threat to the sale of Maine lobster domestically and abroad. The marketing plan, as Marianne will show in a few minutes, includes promoting the lobster fishery as sustainable and highlights our lobster catchers as stewards of the fishery. The board has a great combination of harvesters, dealers, retail, and food service representatives, along with regulatory representation. And I believe the collaborative necessary in a world with incredible competition for center of the plate proteins. Maine has a great story to tell, and when Marianne LaCroix presents the outcomes, I hope you'll agree. And I urge you to support LD 338, and thank you, and I'll answer any questions if you might have them.
Do we have any questions for Senator Langley? Thank you for your testimony. Appreciate it. Nice to see you. Okay. And Ms. LaCroix, do you want to take it from here?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Senator Miramont, Representative McCray, and members of the Marine Resources Committee. My name is Marianne LaCroix. I'm the Executive Director of the Maine Lobster Marketing Collaborative, and I'm here to testify in support of LD 338. The collaborative is charged with promoting Maine lobster and identifying market areas that will provide the greatest return on investment for the industry. Over the past 7 years, the collaborative has focused on increasing demand for Maine lobster in the United States, targeting wholesale, retail, food service, and consumer buyers. We bring together the voices of hundreds of local fishermen, dealers, and processors to provide one powerful voice for the industry. The collaborative developed methods of measuring success that provide meaningful results to the industry. We evaluate marketing metrics to determine general awareness and understanding of Maine lobster and use additional tools to gauge actions towards purchase as a result of our programs. We have generated over 9 billion media impressions by placing over 370 stories across top-tier consumer and trade publications. Over 350,000 people have visited our online dealer directories to find a Maine lobster supplier. 43% of seafood wholesalers are more likely to buy Maine lobster because they have seen our advertisements. More than 580,000 consumers are more likely to buy Maine lobster as a result of our 2020 consumer ad campaign alone. In a recent promotion with a supermarket chain, lobster sales increased 79% during the course of the month-long promotion. These results show that our marketing tactics are reaching potential buyers with the right messages at the right times. The Maine lobster industry is facing grave threats in the coming years, with new regulations on the fishery and competition for ocean bottom from various interests. The collaborative's role is to ensure that buyers maintain confidence in the Maine lobster brand. Our tactics include media training for industry spokespeople, message development, evaluating consumer sentiment, developing and distributing educational content, and providing media outreach. New regulations to protect right whales are top of mind for people in the lobster industry, including us. The collaborative created a website to provide the fisheries perspective on the issue. It includes fact sheets, video content, and media coverage to educate interested parties. We surveyed consumers to determine their awareness of the issue and found that the majority of people are unaware of any connection between right whales and Maine lobster. More importantly, the survey showed that awareness of the issue isn't impacting purchase decisions. With this information, we created a targeted communications approach that tells the fisheries perspective through social media content and distributed these assets to fishermen and dealers so that they have the tools to spread consistent and effective messages. Moving forward, we will continue to work to increase demand for Maine lobster through a creative public relations campaign, innovative social media outreach, and targeted digital advertising. We have planned a new product innovation project to add more value to underutilized parts of the lobster and a consumer research project to determine the optimal target audience by geography, demographics, and behavioral traits. Maine lobster is competing in a marketplace where branded and commodity products are vying for attention. The collaborative provides broad marketing support for the thousands of fishermen and hundreds of dealers and processors that rely on Maine lobster. I urge your support of LD 338 and will answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
338.
Thank you, Ms. LaCroix. I see Representative Thorne has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. LaCroix, you had mentioned underutilized parts of the lobster. Help educate a landlubber.
Sure. Well, we've seen a lot of demand for the claw and knuckle, which you probably are familiar with, the claw and knuckle meat, which is what goes into lobster rolls and other dishes, and the tails. But there's other products coming out of the lobster. One product that we're looking at pretty seriously is called a mince, and it's basically the little bits of meat that come out of different parts of the body and the fins that are a great product with a fantastic flavor and could have a number of uses for consumers and food service markets.
Thank you.
I remember learning how to get the meat out of the fins. It is fantastic. Any other questions for Ms. LaCroix? Seeing none, thank you very much. Thank you for being here. And are you going to stay with us in case questions come up?
Yes, I will. I'll mute myself.
Great, thank you. Okay, we'll turn to testimony 4 from outside of the board and the director. First we have, and I'm hoping I will say this right, Maylee Bucher. Am I close?
Kind of. Thank you so much. Senator Miramont, Representative McCreight, members of the Marine Resources Committee. My name is Maylee Bucher, and I'm a resident of Portland, Maine. I am currently the Vice President of Marketing for Hannaford Supermarkets. I was appointed to the Maine Lobster Marketing Collaborative, and I find great satisfaction in this role, as it's where 3 of the things I love come together, and that would be Maine, marketing, and lobster. So it's absolute nirvana for me. I do support LD 338. Marketing is absolutely critical in food retail. Marketing creates awareness around the product choices a consumer has and their value proposition, and increases their demand exponentially. With a well thought out content marketing strategy, marketing can inspire consumers to select certain products over others and can guide consumers to prepare foods in ways that they never imagined. Effective marketing can create more demand for certain items and ultimately drive more sales. So a relevant example of this is what Hannaford has done to market Maine seafood to our 2 million plus customers across 5 states, making them aware of timely promotions, sustainable harvesting practices, and delicious ways to prepare Maine seafood. So when we feature Maine seafood on the front page of our weekly flyer, which has a circulation of 2.3 million every week, we see a direct impact in sales of those items for that week. And if they're featured in our weekly Sunday emails to 1.3 million members of our loyalty program, the category gets even more traction. And if we're featuring those products in delicious recipes from our Fresh magazine or one of our chef partners, then we see even greater impact. So let me put things in perspective. Last year, we sold over 2 million pounds of Gulf of Maine salmon, which was 150% over 2019 sales. We also sold 1.3 million pounds of Maine lobster, which was 175% over the prior year. With the pandemic raging last summer, we experienced serious meat shortages from producers who were impacted by COVID and had to close production facilities. Maine seafood suppliers filled a huge gap in demand, and we marketed Maine seafood at every opportunity. We knew that our traditional meat-loving customers would like to know which choices were available for protein alternatives and the value that they would receive. We also needed to give them confidence to prepare seafood for their families and their friends. So together with our suppliers, we did a pretty good job of meeting consumer demand. Our meat cases have since been restocked, but I believe that we converted thousands of consumers to Maine seafood, and especially lobster, and many of those have stuck. So in my opinion, the Maine Lobster Marketing Collaborative is just doing a fabulous job of branding Maine lobster, creating awareness around the attributes of Maine lobster, inspiring customers, and creating unprecedented demand in a way that drives the industry forward, fuels Maine's economic engine, and creates a sustainable living for our fishing families. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Bucher. Do we have any questions from the committee? I'm just anxious to know when the store is going to open in Brunswick, but I'll ask you that later.
We're excited too.
Yeah. Okay, we have, is Dave Cousins with us? He's on the list to testify in support.
I moved him in. Yeah,
Cousins.
He needs to unmute. Mr. Cousins, if you could unmute, please.
How about now? Can you hear me?
Oh, there you are. Yes.
Yep.
Senator Marymount.
Yep. Senator Marymount, Representative McCreate. My name is David Cousins. I got to say, this is the first time in 35 years before this committee that I'm doing it this way. And I don't care for it as much as the other way, but you got to do what you got to do. So I would like to support the Lobster Collaborative bill. I was instrumental in 1990 in getting the first lobster promotional bill passed, and the Lobster Collaborative bill passed last time around. In my former life, I was president of the Maine Lobster Association from 1991 to 2018, and the MLA always was instrumental in supporting this and believed wholeheartedly in the job it's done. And I would just like to say that this last year in June, the lobster industry, because of the pandemic, was all over the place. We didn't even know if we were going to have a season. We didn't know if it was going to be worth fishing because we were getting told every day, cruise ship just canceled all orders. The casinos are canceling all orders. Europe is done. So we didn't know if we were going to even be able to sell our lobsters. And I got to say that I want to thank Hannaford and all of the other grocery stores along in the East Coast and in the country that pivoted to take our product, because that was huge. We did have a low price in July and the first part of August, but by the end of August, the price rebounded and we were able to make a pretty good living. And I am very thankful for the Promotional Council, or Collaborative as it's called now, for the work they did. As you all know, we also have a right whale problem, not just a little problem, but a huge problem. And they are going to be instrumental in conveying how we fish, how we sustainably fish, and getting word out if we have a problem with something to the people that need to hear it, which individually as fishermen, we don't have that ability. But through the Promotional Council, they can get the word out to the media that needs to be gotten out about how we prosecute this fishery and what we're doing. And so I think for that reason, they are extremely important coming up, because as you know, they don't really want us to be fishing anymore after 2030, at least with rope, and there's no way that's going to work. So we have our work cut out ahead of us. And I would just like to wholeheartedly support this. And I'll give you just one little thing from a harvester's point of view. I have a Class 3 license. I paid almost $500 for the promotional part of my paid into it. If we get a 10-cent bump in the price because of what the work they do, it amounts to $6,000 for me. So last year I put in $500 and I believe we got way more than a 10% bump, but just say at a 10% bump, I made $5,500 more for that investment. So from a lobsterman's point of view, it's a no-brainer. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Cousins. I see Representative Buckingham has a question.
Thank you. How you doing, Dave?
Good. How you doing, Billy Bob?
Good. I have a question for you about, it's not a question about supporting the marketing council, but it's just a question about, do you think that we should make this indefinitely, or do you think we should, always include this with sort of a sunset, so that if at some point it's not doing its job right, or not working the way it should, or the industry becomes really, really disappointed with the job that's doing, that we have a way to keep it honest and put it up for review every, so many years. Do you think that's a good idea, or do you think that we should just always just write this money off and give it away in our licenses, no matter how good they're performing?
I would like to see it indefinite, because it's a pain in the to come back every 4 or 5 years and do this again. If you always have the option, if things go south, to bring it up anytime the legislature wants. So I would like to see the sunset go away and have it, because I've never believed it was a bad investment. I mean, I really think it's a good investment. I know we have a lot of money to put in to whale defense and everything else, but the money that we spend on this is very well spent. If there is a problem in the future, I believe you can address it then.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Cousins? Seeing none, thanks so much for being here, and thanks for taking on the new technology.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We have still taking testimony 4, and we have Jason Joyce, who is with us.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I appreciate being able to address you folks. I agree wholeheartedly with what Dave said and with what Brian Langley said, and the commissioner and Mary Ann. Actually, I think, the commissioner weighed in on this. Anyway, from my perspective, I'm an 8th generation Islander here on Swans Island. I remember in the late 80s, early 90s, is always a tradition of my family going to the Fisherman's Forum. And in this roundtable debate we always would have, there would be the topic of marketing coming up. And my grandfather and my father were always in favor of it. And they were happy when the Maine Lobster Promotion Council started in 91. Very modest budget, $300,000. I think that basically covered them having a small booth about the size of a telephone booth at the seafood show in Boston, and they'd be at the Fisherman's Forum with a booth. But it was never felt that it was enough money invested to make an impact, a positive impact, a lasting impact. So in 2013, the Lobster Marketing Collaborative was formed. The priorities were to increase the demand, drive up the boat price, and something that has kind of been something that's been implemented in the last year or two is to tell the fisherman's story in regards to the whale issues. I see a lot of guys on social media saying, well, gee, we should take this money and spend it on, putting out a video and telling everybody, well, this is how this is how we're stewarding the resource. We're not having any negative impact, things like that. But I've seen that the marketing collaborative has done that. And I think some fishermen just don't realize that they have been doing that, but it's been all positive. Looking at the costs, if you have a tier 1 license, it's $165 that comes out of your license for this. Tier 2, which is the captain and 1 crew member, that's $330.50. Tier 3 is allowed to have 2 crew members, and that's $480.75, like David mentioned. And I just break it down into what, my bait costs have gone crazy. When I started lobstering I graduated from high school in '88, it would cost me $37.50 for a barrel of bait for herring, and now we're at over $300. So that cost has gone crazy. But taking that into light and how I can stretch that bait cost, I can pay for baiting 60 traps for the subsidy that's on the tier 1 license. I can bait 120 traps for the amount of the subsidy on the tier 2, and I can bait 180 traps for the subsidy on the tier 3 license. And I think even though a lot of fellows may look at this and say, well, it's my money, let me spend it the way I want, the reasonable, smart way to invest that amount of money that helps you over the course of the year and helps the industry and looks to the future, which a lot of what we do in this industry, a lot of people who are in it, I'm here because the previous generation looked out for us. They didn't try to, reap it like a gold mine, but treat it like a resource, and also be positive and to make sure that my children, grandchildren, so on and so forth, are able to get into this and build a strong base. And I think that building a strong base is going to help us with this whale issue, even though we are looking at a lot of things that are looking to have a negative impact on us, the whale rules, offshore wind. As we build a strong base through these efforts that the Maine Lobster, the collaborative is doing, now you have a base of followers that want to support us. They hear our story. They understand, I'm on an island of 370 to 390 year-round residents that without fishing, we won't be open year-round. We'll be a seasonal community. So we're completely dependent on this. So bringing it up to speed, 2019, 2020, with all the tariff issues that we had, whether it was the tariff issue with Europe and Canada, making a better deal for about a year. We kind of lost that market, or our dealers were at a loss in that market. Considering those two, that issue, and then the Chinese tariffs that we had to live through, that made these targeted advertising domestically on lobster so important. And so when we lost those markets, and then with the pandemic, restaurants closing down and so on and so forth, that made the marketing collaboratives targeted area of this country so much more important. And I've seen a lot of people over the past talk about, well, we should be marketing more overseas and whatnot. And I think in the long run, the United States is a huge market, and they're going to get their seafood somewhere. And what better way to target that market than as people try to buy local, and they want to buy something that's good and sustainable and not farm raised, like the shrimp that hopefully none of you buy when you go to, well, I won't say any places where you can buy the bad shrimp, but there is seafood out there that is farm raised. It's not up to the standards of Maine lobster. So in closing, I support LD 338, and I hope that it's passed through here with a not to pass, and that then it moves through. Thank you. And I don't think I have, okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, we all need t-shirts. Unmute. Any questions for Mr. Joyce from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
And do we have,
Sorry,
I see we have someone who's not on the list here. Do we have someone else in support? If you could raise your hand. Okay. I see Dustin Delano, you're here in support of the bill. Do you go ahead, please?
Sorry, I was trying to raise my hand and then I was trying to unmute, so there we go, I guess. My name's Dustin Delano. I am a fisherman from Friendship and also the vice president of the Maine Lobstermen's Association. And I'm here to show support for this bill. The Maine Lobstermen's Association board voted to support this. I've had a lot of personal experience with the collaborative myself since the beginning. I'm also currently serving as a board member for that as well, with one of the harvester seats. Throughout the last few years, I've had opportunity to participate in different events. Some of the Maine After Midnight events that have been held across the country. And, part of the goal with that was for chefs to connect with fishermen. And it was pretty cool to build that relationship in different places, to educate chefs on what we do, how we do it. And, basically all the work that goes into getting the product to different places. You could definitely see that it definitely made them more interested in our product for sure. The marketing program provides ongoing promotion for Maine lobster, and it helps to maintain demand when there are adverse market conditions like, tariffs that lifted or put in place, or as we had that roller coaster over the last few years. When the pandemic hit, I remember probably 10 months ago, sitting there thinking, what am I going to do? What am I going to do for the next few months? My first boat payments due in July for the season, house payments, everything else, family. What am I going to do? I can't sell a lobster right now. And then it came to the point where, you can go, but we'll give you, a couple dollars a pound, or none of that was going to work. We were definitely looking for the future of the season to be bleak, and, it really put us in survival mode. And I can't thank the collaborative and dealers enough for their response, that they completely changed the way that they market the product. And that, who would have thought, sitting here on, the 23rd of February, I hauled yesterday and got $9.75 a pound, and we're still in the middle of a pandemic. So I think we can't just scrap this resource. The next few years look sketchy. We're going to be raising money to fight whale rules, to just, be able to continue doing what we do on the water, providing seafood to people in the country. And we can't afford to lose this contributor. And so I guess I look at it as a lifeline. I look at it as part of what made us get through the 2020 season. And it's got to be a contributor to a $10 price in February in the middle of a pandemic. And I will say too that throughout the last few years, lobstermen have been able to vet media requests, especially the MLA and different people through the collaborative. And it definitely takes the burden off the MLA themselves to be able to push the different requests for media interviews off to them. And, they're able to, we're constantly thinking about the issues that are going on, but they're able to put a spin on it to, help with marketing. So I guess that's all I have to say, but I hope that you'll vote to, keep this thing going.
Thank you, Mr. Delano. Do we have any questions for Mr. Delano? Seeing none, thank you. Good to see you again.
Thanks.
Okay, do we have anyone else here to testify for? If you could raise your hand, if so.
I'm not showing anyone else on the list for.
Okay, great, thank you. We have one person here to testify against. Do we have Virginia Olson here? I see her.
Hello.
There she is. Hi, Virginia. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. My name is Virginia Olson. I am here speaking on behalf of the Maine Lobstering Union and Local 207. So I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you all today. And as you said, I am speaking in opposition to LD 338, an act to amend the laws governing the Maine Lobster Marketing Collaborative. And I do want to start off by saying that the collaborative has been run so much better under Mary Ann's leadership. I'd like to personally thank her. Ultimately, this program just doesn't have the matrix to measure its success for fishermen, and they just don't support it. If we could use social media polls in public hearings, then this bill just wouldn't stand. It wouldn't have passed the first time. And then again, if keyboard warriors were allowed, then I wouldn't need to be here. With all of the things that we're facing in the lobster industry with the North Atlantic right whales and offshore wind, we're fighting for our very existence. And to ask fishermen to pay for promotions to an industry that they're fighting for just doesn't sit well with them. This is further compounded by the fact that funds from the CARES Act were taken out and put into the seafood promotion. I know this is completely separate, but it confuses fishermen. And it's $1 million that they have to work with for all of seafood. But they also feel like it opens the doors that other species of seafood can now put into the marketing of all seafood, and that maybe now this program can be run through dealers and not through fishermen. So I know that as well, dealers pay the lion's share of this program, but fishermen also pay the brunt of rising costs, the whole gamut of rising costs, be it through, things that we're doing with whale regulations, different ropes. It's just a lot of different things that the fishermen have to pay for, but we're not seeing that at the dock with increased pricing. So I think it just needs to be very clear that with a 98% reduction in our fishery, we cannot support a marketing program. The industrialization of our coastline with windmills will not support a marketing program. And, if regulations and rising costs in bait and supplies continue, that we will be the next endangered species and we will not need a marketing program. So that is how our group feels. And I guess that's it for me.
Thank you, Ms. Olson. Do we have any questions? Representative Buckingham.
Thank you. Thank you, Virginia. Same question I asked Dave Cousins pretty much. So if this marketing collaborative stays in effect, do you think it's a good idea to at least give it a sunset? So if, industry perception of it or support of it changes, or if they aren't performing or doing a good job, that at least we have a date to keep them honest so they'll get renewed? Or do you think that this should just go indefinitely?
I think a sunset clause would be very helpful. At the last sunset, we were in support of the collaborative. But I do agree that having a sunset would be most helpful.
Thank you. And another question, Representative Thorne.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Olson, full disclosure, in my other life, I'm an advertising and marketing director. So my question to you would be, if this does go away, what do you propose to do in its place? Something on a smaller scale, do away with marketing altogether? What would you propose to take place of this?
I would answer that in twofold. I would say that something smaller should take its place. I think that the Maine seafood brand that they have started with the CARES Act fund, that should be incorporated together so that we're branding all of Maine seafood, and lobster should have a significant role in that. And that the dealers market their product. Lobster 207 has a fantastic promotional program, and we market our own product.
May I ask a follow-up question, Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
Ms. Olson, you had mentioned that, the Maine Seafood brand on the Lobster Marketing Collaborative. Would you say, are you strictly a lobster harvester?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm a lobster
So-
fisherman, but we deal with soft shell clams as well.
Okay, so there would be some benefit to the other seafood industries from marketing lobster and saying that that's, kind of the expression "a rising tide floats all ships," if you will.
Yes.
So there is some spillover benefit to other industries, other seafood, lobster fisheries than lobster, correct?
Yes, I would agree with that, which is why I think that the place for this to be housed would be with all seafood that Maine produces.
Okay, so you're suggesting maybe rather than keeping it as a lobster marketing collaborative, that, if you were king for a day, make it the Maine Seafood Marketing Collaborative?
Maybe so.
And have all fishermen contribute, not just lobster fishermen?
So I would say that it would be all seafood dealers would contribute instead of lobster fishermen.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Representative Fockingham?
Thank you. That conversation just led me to sort of another follow-up question. So Virginia, I was just thinking how, as fishermen, we usually think of ourselves as fishermen, not specifically a lobster fisherman or, whatever. Fisherman's a fisherman. And all our seafood is sort of in one basket with the Maine brand, with, I'd say, lobster as the top echelon there. And there's certainly some great interest in the advertising aspect of that. And I think that the Maine brand is the lobster. When you think of Maine, I don't think of anybody from away doesn't think of Maine lobster when they think of Maine. So the stakeholders in this collaborative are pretty much the lobster license holders and the lobster dealers. Do you think that there's a place for the state of Maine to be promoting our lobster specifically, but also Maine seafood in general? And do you think that perhaps the state of Maine should be pitching money into this effort as well?
I do believe the state should be pitching money into this. I also agree that lobster is most recognized as our brand. But I do think our other seafood does play a role. I mean, shellfish in particular has been a high earner for Maine. And I know aquaculture has always been a touchy subject. So it does have a place, and, it should also be represented, and how we do that and move forward, I don't know. So I don't know if that answers your question or not. But yeah.
Thanks.
Did I even come close?
Well, those are your thoughts. So, that's all I can ask for. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? I do have one. Ginny, Ms. Olson, I'm wondering, you mentioned the CARES Act funds, but that's not an ongoing fund. Do you know when that ends?
I don't. I believe it was a one-time fee that they took out. I think they received $1 million from the CARES Act. And I believe the state used to contribute annually to marketing.
Okay.
So I would suggest putting that into our budget again.
Okay, but we won't have the CARES Act funds, as far as anybody knows, going.
Correct.
After this, yeah. Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Olson? Seeing none, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And we have any others that I don't know about here to testify in opposition?
Representative McCreight, we did have a Hugh Reynolds on for neither, but he is no longer that I can see in the waiting room.
Okay. So no others. We've heard from everyone on the list.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. In that case, we'll close the public hearing on LD 338, and I'll turn it back to Senator Mirmont.
Thank you, Representative. Okay, looking at the list, we are now going to go to a meet and greet, but this commissioner wants to talk first.
We have one more bill for public hearing.
We did. We went out of order. You're right. I'm sorry.
We went out of order.
Okay, great. I'm catching up. I'm standing up. That felt better. Okay, so let's move on to the public hearing regarding an act to make technical changes to Maine's marine resources laws presented by Representative McCreight. Take it away.
Thank you. Senator Mirmont, esteemed members of the Marine Resources Committee, I'm Jay McCreight, representing House District 51, Harpswell, West Bath, and Northeast Brunswick. Today, I introduce LD 263, an act, oh, I have a typo in my testimony, an act to make technical changes to Maine's marine resources laws, which is a department bill. The specifics of the technical changes proposed in the bill include a change in the shellfish sanitation certificate expiration date, clarification of who is not required to have an aquaculture lease, clarification of the requirement for secure attachment of lobster trap tags, and that the specific penalty for violation of a rule adopted by the department may be specified in rule. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. And again, it's a department bill, so they're probably much better able to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative McCreight. Any questions of Representative McCreight from the committee? Seeing none, we will go to the department for a little briefing here.
Thank you, Senator Mirmont, Representative McCreight, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Marine Resources. I am Deirdre Gilbert. I'm the Director of State Marine Policy at DMR, and I am testifying on behalf of the department in support of LD 263. As you've mentioned, this is a department bill. We are grateful to Representative McCreight for bringing this forward on our behalf. This bill represents the department's efforts to identify legislative changes that are necessary to clarify or correct existing laws. As such, it is a disparate assortment of items with no common connection other than just being cleanup in their nature. For that reason, I will address each proposal section by section. So under existing law, the general penalty provided for violating a regulation is a civil violation for which a fine of not less than $100 may be adjudged. However, elsewhere in statute, there are other sections of law which provide that a violation of a specific department regulation is actually a criminal violation. An example of this is Title 12, Section 6431B, which pertains to the lobster trap tag system. And that provides that a violation of the regulation is a civil violation if there are 25 or fewer traps not tagged in accordance with the regulation, but a criminal violation if there are more than 25 tags not tagged in accordance with the regulation. The change in Section 1 would simply make clear that a violation of a regulation is civil unless another penalty is provided. I did note in the summary, it indicated that the department could adopt those penalties in regulation. That was not our intent. We were just trying to indicate that if there is a different penalty provided, then that penalty is the one that should be used rather than the civil violation. Section 2 of the bill changes the expiration of the shellfish sanitation certificate from May 31st to March 31st. Doing so will bring the shellfish sanitation certificate into alignment with the licensing year of the wholesale seafood dealer license, upon which the shellfish sanitation certificate depends. That is, a license holder must have a current wholesale seafood dealer license in order to obtain a shellfish sanitation certificate, and this will eliminate confusion and improve administrative efficiencies. Section 3 creates a prohibition on fishing traps in a manner that violates a regulation so that Marine Patrol may write the violation under the statute instead of having to write that violation under the regulation. Since drafting, we have received further input from Marine Patrol that the language should still reference the tagging requirements provided in regulation as follows. So the new language would be: a person may not fish with or have on board a vessel a lobster trap unless the lobster trap is tagged in accordance with a rule adopted pursuant to subsection 1. And a person who violates this prohibition commits, and that's where it goes on to the civil and criminal violations. This will ensure that the regulations regarding requirements for other types of tagging, such as double tagging, second zone tags, replacement tags, are all included in that requirement. Section 4 clarifies that an aquaculture license is not required for individuals holding either a limited purpose aquaculture license, which is currently the case, or also an experimental lease that is not for commercial purposes. And then finally, an additional item that was identified after drafting is a change to the law regarding licensing for scallop aquaculture. Under existing statute, aquaculturists are prohibited from possessing whole scallops, and this is due to the risk of biotoxin in any portion of the scallop other than the adductor muscle. However, there are Maine growers who are exploring the market for whole or row-on scallops by conducting the necessary testing to ensure that the scallops are safe for human consumption. And this is currently only allowed by the department through a special license, which exempts the aquaculturist from this prohibition in law. And then they also enter into an MOU with the public health, with the Bureau of Public Health, between that bureau and the grower. The department does not feel it is necessary to have both documents, so we are proposing to eliminate the prohibition in law, and then all that the grower would need would be the MOU. And if the committee is amenable to this change, I have some proposed language within the testimony. That is all we have in this bill at this time. I thank you for your consideration and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Does the committee have any questions? One of the things about this is, as the department needs changes, we bring bills as the committee and work them. So we have this one, and they're just looking into what other things might arise. So we're not going to rush this bill through. You have time to ask questions. I mean, ask them now if you want. It'll give them a chance to refine it, but we're not going to do the work session really quickly on this. So think about what she said, and if you have any ideas around that or something else that you know that the department needed to resolve and we hadn't gotten to it, we'll throw it in this bill if we have to when we have the work session. So with that, anyone have any questions of Ms. Gilbert? Representative Hepler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Deirdre. Actually, somebody who lives in Georgetown had looked at this bill and wanted to know why, is it the clarification that the aquaculture license is not needed for holders of leases or LPAs who are doing for research? Is that just to clarify that, or is that a change?
Thank you, Representative Hepler. So under the existing law, you don't need an aquaculture license if you are an LPA holder who is not going to sell your product. And at the time, when we first crafted that exemption, we were thinking that is largely the instrument that people use if they're going to do aquaculture that is just for personal use. However, subsequently, we realized there are experimental leaseholders who have that lease in order to do research largely, and it is not a commercial endeavor. And so we did not want to make those individuals obtain an aquaculture license either, if they weren't going to be selling their product. So this was meant to capture just both scenarios, or the most common scenarios, where people have the authority to do aquaculture, but they don't sell.
Great, thank you. That's what she was thinking it was.
Good.
Great, thank you for that. I don't see any other hands. And Linda, do we have, oh, there's Representative Fockingham. I like that feature. Good. Go ahead.
Thank you, Senator. So just trying to catch up with this. I was reading in your testimony here, under 2 penalties. Is that underlined section does that mean that is all new language?
Thank you, Representative Fockingham. So yes, the underlining is new language. You can see that it is also striking some other language. So we're trying to substitute the underlined language for the struck language. So it used to be that a person who violates a rule adopted pursuant to subsection 1, and then that describes the authority to adopt regulations regarding requirements around the use of trap tags. What we are trying to do in the section is actually just create a prohibition instead of saying a person who violates a rule commits this type of violation. We're trying to create the prohibition so that patrol can actually write the violation under the statute. Right now, really their only option is to write the violation under the regulation. And we have been concerned that there's some ambiguity there that goes back to the first section of the bill, that regulations are civil, but then this section says sometimes the regulation is civil and sometimes it's criminal. So just for clarity and cleanness, it would be better for patrol to write this violation under the statute and have a clear prohibition there. The details of the trap tag requirements would remain in the regulation, if that makes sense.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Sure, go ahead.
Thanks. So was that description already described in the rule, or is this a new description to describe the violation, basically?
I don't have the rule language in front of me. It's a very similar construction. I can provide that to you just so you can compare them.
Okay, that would be great by me. Yeah, because that's what's hard sometimes is tracking down what's there in the rule and what's there in the statute. So if I could know what it already said and what this is saying, that would be helpful. Thanks.
Great, thank you. I have no other hands. And we're now looking for testimony in favor of LD 263. Do we have any, Linda?
I am showing no one else signed up for testimony in any position.
Great. Okay. Seeing no questions, hearing nobody else speaking up, that will close the public hearing on LD 263. Okay. Now I have the meet and greet by interested parties. And I remembered something about the commissioner having to leave. Has he done everything that he wanted? Because he's not here, so that's good. So, yep, that should be taken care of. Okay.
No, I'm all set, Senator. Thank you very much. I'm just signing off now. I appreciate everybody's time.
Great. Thanks for being here. Okay, the meet and greet, and I do not have the schedule for those in front of me. So, Linda, if you could, please prompt me on that.
Yes, the first person I have scheduled is Caitlin Bernard from Nature Conservancy. She is in the waiting room and I'll bring her in.
Great.
Good morning, Senator Marymount, Representative McCreight, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Marine Resources. My name is Caitlin Bernard, and I'm the Natural Resources Policy Advisor for the Nature Conservancy here in Maine. I really appreciate the opportunity to introduce myself and my organization to your committee, and I really look forward to working together in the 130th legislature. The Nature Conservancy is a nonprofit conservation organization dedicated to conserving the lands and waters on which all life depends. Guided by science, we create innovative, on-the-ground solutions to our world's toughest challenges so that nature and people can thrive together. We work in more than 70 countries, and we use this collaborative approach that engages local communities, governments, the private sector, and other partners. Here in Maine, we've been leading on conservation for more than 60 years, and we're the 12th largest landowner in the state, owning and managing roughly 300,000 acres of land. We also work across Maine to restore rivers and streams, partner with fishermen in the Gulf of Maine to rebuild groundfish populations, and develop innovative solutions to address our changing climate. Our priority issues for this session include passing a robust Land for Maine's Future package, advancing the work of the Maine Climate Council by translating that plan into policy, and supporting the advancement of renewable energy with a focus on good siting criteria. I anticipate we'll work with this committee on some of these issues and others that come up, including marine fisheries management, science, and research. I also know that a member of our staff serves on the Marine Resources Advisory Committee, Jeff Smith. So we're in good contact with your team and with the agency and here to help if there's anything you need from us. I thank you for this opportunity, and I'm happy to answer questions now or into the future.
Thank you very much for that. We appreciate knowing who we're working with and who's out there supporting everything in the state when it comes to marine resources. So any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you. And we'll always look for you if we have something in your area of expertise. Thank you. Okay, next, Linda.
Next, we have Andrea Maker from Pierce Atwood. She's on screen now.
Welcome. How are you, Ms. Maker?
Thank you. I'm doing very well. It's nice to see you, Senator Marymount and Representative McCreight, and esteemed members of the Marine Resources Committee. It's a pleasure, really, to see you all today. I wish that we could be in the same room. So I'm Andrea Chincat Maker. I am an attorney at Pierce Atwood in Portland and represent Whole Oceans, which is the proposed recirculating aquaculture system being developed in Bucksport, Maine. This is a facility that's being constructed at the site of the former Bucksport paper mill. And the infrastructure that's there has made it a very amenable site to this type of development. So the company plans to raise Atlantic salmon in this recirculating aquaculture system. This country, United States, imports about 95% of the Atlantic salmon that we consume. So if we could grow more here on this continent, it would obviously reduce greenhouse gas emissions, probably reduce the price of the product, and give us more of the economic benefit of having this type of production here in the country. So I introduced myself to you. I am not certain that there'll be legislation related to the recirculating aquaculture system industry in the legislature. I've looked at the bill titles. Nothing pops out at me as obvious, but in the event it does come up, or in the event you have questions about this technology or industry, I just wanted to make myself available to you. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Great to see you too. Yeah, I like to be in person when we can. Any questions?
Thank you.
Representative Thorne.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You had mentioned, Ms. Maker, that there was 95% of the U.S. salmon is imported.
Well, of the salmon that's consumed in the United States comes in from Chile, Argentina, the Scandinavian countries. Yeah.
Okay. By chance, do you know what percentage of that 95% is farm raised versus wild caught?
I do not. I'm happy to get the answer to you. I do know that wild caught is not allowed in other regions of the world, and it is allowed in some. So let me find out.
Okay, thank you. May I ask a follow-up, Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Ms. Baker, I was also curious if you were aware of what the total production of farm-raised salmon in the U.S. currently is.
In terms of metric tons of production?
Yes.
No, I don't have that off the top of my head either, but I'll do that at the same time.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, you're very welcome.
Thank you. Next, I show Senator Rosen and then Representative Hutchins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Andrea, for being here today.
Hi, Senator.
I know there's been quite a delay in the start. Do they have a date that they want to actually break ground and start the process?
They've been pretty careful not to put another date out there because they don't want to once again, mislead and disappoint. I think that if things stay on the schedule that they're on right now, we might see something by the end of this year, but I've not been authorized to say that.
Okay.
They're working toward it.
So it's still going to happen.
It is still going to happen. I personally, from where I sit, I don't have any doubt about that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Thank you. And Representative Hutchins.
Thank you, Ms. Baker, and thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm extremely excited about this prospect in Bucksport. Senator Rosen and I circulate around this area a lot, and the entire area, I think, is very excited about the opportunity to make a good use of this area. And my question was the same as the Senator's, as to the start date. So thank you very much.
Okay, and is Representative Thorne, is that hand still up from before, or is that new?
That is new, Mr. Chair. Thank you for recognizing me. Just a quick question for Ms. Baker. And again, this is more informative for other members of the committee that may not be aware. How many is this Bucksport facility supposed to employ when it's up and running?
Yeah, they're looking at employing about 150 people when they're up and running. Full scale, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. I don't see any more questions.
Okay.
Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
See you soon.
And Senator, next we have Stacy Kiefer, who is already on screen from Maine Marine Trades Association.
Great. Well, welcome. Nice to see you.
Good morning, Senator Miramont, Representative McCreight, and members of the committee. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Stacy Kiefer, and I'm the director of the Maine Marine Trades Association, representing over 120 businesses statewide, primarily in boat building, boat yards, marinas, marine retail and wholesale, and others. Now, I just want you to know that some of our members only serve commercial fisheries vessels, while some only serve recreational, and then there are many in between who serve a little bit of both. Combined in our industry, the National Marine Manufacturers estimate our industry economic impact in Maine is near $2.9 billion, and that's just data from 2018. As you can imagine, you're all so aware of our heritage and emerging fisheries, and the marine world of boat builders and boat yards once existed to solely serve that heritage industry, but they've had to adapt over the years to basically serve recreational boats and find a balance so that the recreational boaters end up helping subsidize some of our important working waterfront infrastructure that our commercial fisheries depend upon. So essentially, our industry, we promote the growth, prosperity, and cooperation amongst these businesses. Healthy fisheries are important to us. We also put a focus on education, career opportunities, health and safety, and environmental concerns across our membership statewide. I also had the opportunity to serve on the Coastal and Marine Working Group for the Governor's Climate Council last year. And though we don't anticipate having to submit testimony at this time with your committee, we'll be keeping an eye on the bills in case that's necessary. Good luck in this new format. And I just want to thank you all for your leadership this session.
Well, thank you, Ms. Kiefer. And appreciate you pointing out the issue on the slow implementation of my bill to allow ethanol-free fuel in all counties of Maine. Finally, it passed, and then the September date came and went because there was a November date that had been added by the DEP here in Maine, and then that went by, and we can have ethanol-free fuel in every county in this state now, but we need a letter from the EPA. And actually, thanks to Ms. Kiefer pointing out that we were going slowly, it turns out that the DEP has sent for that permission. The EPA has approved it. They're drafting the permission. It should be along here very soon. And we will no longer have to destroy all our small engines and others by running ethanol through so that we can support Midwest large agribusiness. Little bit of editorializing there, but anyway, thank you very much, Stacey.
You're welcome.
So, seeing no questions, we'll let you go and move on to the mysteries here for all of us. Linda?
Yes, next we have representatives from Island Institute, Nick Batista and Sam Belknap, both on screen.
Great, thank you, and welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Senator Mira, Representative McCrate, members of the committee. My name is Nick Batista, and I'm the Senior Policy Officer at the Island Institute. I live in Camden, Maine. Thank you for having this meet and greet. I'll share a little bit about the Island Institute and our work more broadly, and then Sam will talk a little bit about our work related to the marine economy. The Island Institute's a 37-year-old nonprofit organization based in Rockland. We work to sustain Maine's island and coastal communities and are committed to a just, resilient, vibrant future for the coast of Maine. We work in partnership with courageous leaders to support resilient communities and to confront a changing world. Our community development work focuses on the marine economy, climate and energy pilots, small businesses, education and leadership. Broadband is foundational to all of the work that we do, and it's critical that all Mainers have the ability to access high-speed, reliable internet. The Island Institute's part of the Maine Broadband Coalition, and in my spare time, I'm on the Connect Maine Authority board. You'll see us on broadband issues, particularly around bond funding for broadband. In the materials circulated to the committee, there's a link to the Maine Broadband Coalition. Please go and take the speed test, see how your speeds are, particularly when you're not on Zoom or using the internet. Put your home on the map and help us solve our state's broadband challenges. As you well know, Maine's small coastal communities are highly dependent on fisheries. For a sense of just how dependent on fisheries we are, the lobster landings for Rockland, Stonington, and Vinyl Haven are almost equal to the total value of all commercial fish species landed in New Hampshire, Connecticut, and Rhode Island together. That's 3 communities in Maine in one species has a same value as 3 states in New England. With about 452,000 residents along the coast of Maine, 75% of Maine's coastal communities have fewer than 3,500 people. 25% of our coastal communities have fewer than 800 people. A lot of Maine's coast is small towns, small communities. You all know this well. Many of you are from these small rural natural resource dependent communities. Information like this fact come from the Waypoints publication that's also in the email that you got. I would encourage you to take a look at pages 10 and 11 for some information about sea level rise, Pages 22 and 23 has some information about the lobster trade, international trade. These are numbers, pre-pandemic numbers. Pages 24 and 25 has some information on vessel traffic in the Gulf of Maine. Based on some of your earlier conversations this morning, it just might be helpful to see some of the vessel traffic patterns. And then pages 28 and 29 are about working waterfront preservation issues. You will see us here before you on working waterfront issues, most likely LMF funding and other issues related to the future of our working waterfronts. In terms of climate change, the Island Institute participated in the Climate Council. We had staff on the Buildings, Housing, and Infrastructure Working Group, the Coastal and Marine Working Group, and the Community Resilience Planning Working Group. And Susie Arnold, our marine scientist, sat on the Science and Technical Subcommittee, and we also have a staff member who is just appointed to be on the Equity Working Group, and that's great. That's in part where we make sure that Maine small and most rural, remote coastal communities show up in these discussions. Just wanted to note for the committee that over the years we've been before you as the Island Institute talking about ocean and coastal acidification, and it's a really important topic, and just wanted to provide a quick update. Almost 80% of Maine's fisheries by landings by value are shell producing species: lobster, clams, scallops, urchins, oysters. When Maine really started looking into ocean and coastal acidification in 2015, there was only one published study on how the American lobster responded to ocean and coastal acidification. Since then, there have been 5 additional publications. A lot of that is due to the work that has happened in Maine, and a lot of that is due to the work that this committee has helped support and really made happen over the years. I think when it comes to addressing ocean and coastal acidification, the Island Institute is working with some kelp farmers and Bigelow Labs and some mussel farms, Bigelow, Banks Island, Atlantic Sea Farms, to understand how growing kelp can better improve our local environment, and also understand how mussels planted near kelp can grow better, stronger, become a better product. And we've shown through this work that in just 2 months, mussels planted near kelp farms have a thicker and denser shell that are harder to break. That's important when it comes to marketing. And so just a little bit of some of the work that Susie Arnold, our marine scientist, has been up to in collaboration with some great partners. And I'll turn it over to Sam to talk a little bit more about our marine work.
Thank you, Nick. Good morning, Senator Miramont, Representative McCrate, esteemed members of the Joint Standing Committee. Thank you for this opportunity today. My name's Sam Belknap. I'm a resident of Damariscotta, a 3rd-generation lobsterman by birth, and a senior community development officer at the Island Institute that oversees our marine economy and our climate and energy work. And Nick mentioned the importance of the OA work. And in the past, the ocean acidification work was in support of our aquaculture business development program, where over the last 4 years, we helped more than 100 lobstermen and women become engaged in aquaculture as a way to diversify their livelihoods. They've started 30 businesses here along the coast of Maine, so making an economic impact beyond just lobster along our coast. During the pandemic, we pivoted our work from this individual support with lobstermen and women to really supporting the broader marine economy and looking to support both aquaculture and our heritage fisheries, and making sure that they're both situated in a robust marine economy. A significant component of this work is the commitment to decarbonizing the seafood supply chain. And a centerpiece of that work is a collaboration with Luke's Lobster, a vertically integrated B corporation here along the coast, where we are partnering with them from the co-op, from the fishermen through the co-ops up through the supply chain of processing, looking to identify ways where the seafood supply chain can minimize its carbon footprint while at the same time realizing cost savings and cost stabilization to better prepare the supply chain for the future. In addition to the decarbonization work with Luke's, we've also partnered with them on the creation of an e-commerce platform targeting non-traditional species, really looking beyond lobster and seeing how we can help provide opportunities for small scale seafood producers, whether they're ground fishermen, whether they're mussel or oyster aquaculturists, whether they're seaweed aquaculturists, to leverage established e-commerce platforms and help get the wonderful Maine products that we grow and harvest along the coast out to a national audience. This e-commerce platform is really built upon the foundations of a triple bottom line approach, making sure that not just the platform itself, but those businesses that are participating in the e-commerce platform are dedicated to realizing both social, environmental, as well as economic benefits to kind of have our seafood economy held up as the gold standard across the country. And more recently, our work in support of the marine economy has focused on the new $2.5 million EDA funded Marine Economy Roadmap Initiative, now called CMAIN. The Island Institute applied for it and was granted the project management position. You'll be hearing more about that from the co-chairs of that work called CMAIN here after our group, I believe. Now, I won't steal any of their thunder, but recognizing that the Institute is in support of this industry-driven, 37 different organizations are serving as the steering committee of this, helping to chart the course for Maine's marine economy for the years to come. It's wonderful to be part of a kind of a holistic approach, incorporating both aquaculture and heritage fisheries, as well as research and emerging opportunity development within that initiative. So that's a real quick run through of what we're up to these days. Happy to provide any follow-on details either today or offline. And you can expect the Institute to be showing up, as Nick mentioned, on issues of working waterfront, around issues of aquaculture, the marine economy more broadly, broadband, and coastal resilience. Thank you.
We do expect that. Thank you. Great. Anybody have any questions? Representative McCray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to check in with you and see if you have, if you're doing the aquaculture training at this point. You've had very robust cohorts that you've trained, and I just wonder where that is in pandemic world.
Yeah, so we decided to not host a cohort this year, Representative McCray, because of the kind of market uncertainty that COVID has caused, and instead kind of pivoted, as I mentioned, our work to supporting the marine economy as a whole to make sure those businesses that we have supported to date have a robust economy in which they can operate and that they can have successful businesses. We've also been actively partnering with the Maine Aquaculture Hub, CEI, and Maine Sea Grant in support of their Aquaculture and Shared Waters program, which is a similar training program. And we've been sharing our lessons learned and providing them the 4 years of experience that we have to help build that into an even more robust program.
Thank you.
Great. So Nick, when both of you work at home, how does childcare work in this pandemic world?
The grandparents are doing childcare, which is
excellent.
Good.
I'd ask this of everyone if I knew who had young kids or not, and I almost said
I'm honestly
baby,
surprised.
Surpassing. You too?
I'm honestly surprised Mike didn't come testify on behalf of one of the bills earlier, so.
That's great. Well, thank you for your presentation and joining us, and we always know you're a resource. And for me, Nick's right around the corner. Mr. Batista is right around the corner, and it's paid off. That his office down in Rockland. So thank you for all your help, and seeing no more questions. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Committee.
Okay, next.
Yes, Senator, next we have on hand Bill Mook and Kurt Brown of CMAIN, and they're both on screen.
Great. Welcome, gentlemen. Whoever wants to can go first.
Thank you. Actually, Kurt, I think you're starting, right? This is probably not going to be as well orchestrated as we normally do, but Kurt's up first, I think.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for the opportunity this morning. We really appreciate it. We feel this is a very important project for the future of Maine's marine economy. So this opportunity is greatly appreciated. Both Bill and I are here today to focus on the Seafood Economic Accelerator of Maine, or CMAIN project. This presentation was put together by our collaborators at the Island Institute and all of our collaborators. So all the credit goes to them, and any missteps can be placed squarely on the shoulders of Bill. But I'll introduce myself quickly. My name is Kurt Brown. I'm a marine biologist at Ready Seafood and also a lobsterman out of Cape Elizabeth, Maine.
And I'm Bill Mook. I own Mook Sea Farm on the Damariscotta River. We're an oyster farm there. Been there for 35 years. And I am Kurt's better half as an industry partner of the CMaine project. So basically, CMaine is a cross-sector group. There are about 39 different industry leaders and other partners, and we're working to develop a roadmap for sustainable economic growth, workforce development, greater resiliency in Maine's seafood economy through diversification and collaboration within and across sectors. And I think Kurt has a little story about an example of that collaboration he's going to share with you.
Yeah, a great example of kind of that organic collaboration that occurs when groups like this come together is about a year ago, or a little over a year ago, when everything went sideways. Bill and his team came down to our new plant down here in Saco, and we all stood in four corners of the room. We were all basically dressed in plastic garbage bags for safety purposes. No one really knew what was going on, but we all knew we were in big trouble and had to pivot quickly. And we were talking about what are some of the strong markets in conditions like this. And one of our sister companies sold products directly to consumers through an online outlet known as Goldbelly. You can go on goldbelly.com and buy everything from lobster rolls to New York style pizza and everything in between. So we said, hey, Bill, it would be a great opportunity for you to sell your oysters to the world at large, beyond the state of Maine. Goldbelly obviously has some name recognition. Bill's signature oysters are, go ahead, Bill, throw out the name of your signature.
Well, we sell under a few names, Moon Dancers and Mookie Blues.
So Moon Dancers, what I was familiar with. So the combination of Goldbelly and Moon Dancers resulted in, you can now go online onto goldbelly.com and buy Mook Sea Farm's Belly Dancer oysters. So just a cool anecdotal example of what this collaboration can lead to. And
he didn't charge me for that idea yet.
Yeah, that's in the mail. We'll discuss the terms in the future. Yes, that's right. But we passed along a presentation to you earlier, and you can see the depth and the breadth of this collaboration on slide 3 with all the different examples of companies, universities, partners, collaborators on this project. So what is this initiative? So essentially, CMaine is a 3-year, $2.1 million project funded by the U.S. Economic Development Administration with Maine Technology Institute and Focus Maine, that was initiated in June of 2020. It is modeled after what the forestry industry did and is doing with For Maine. And the results of our final report and the network we have established is intended to endure far into the future beyond the lifespan of this particular project.
Excuse me for a minute, Kurt. We do have the Lynn can screen share the presentation you brought, if you would like that.
That's up to you. If we want to share it, that
Or
might
you could
help
just
us
sort of
along.
follow along with us either way. We're sort of going from that, honestly.
Yeah, I was just trying to pull it up to be able to do that. So since, I think that's two of us that thought it'd be a good idea.
Let's do it. I don't know who has control over sharing screens in this group, but if whoever does wants to bring that up.
That's our analyst Lynn is doing that now. And
And if you will just make it clear when you want me to forward a slide, I will do that.
We can do that for sure. Right now, we're about to dig into the slide with the title "Strategic Roadmap for Maine's Seafood Industry."
So and that's me. So basically, what the idea is that we want to increase the economic impact of all the sectors that derive value from living marine resources, and at the same time increase the number of people employed in good-paying jobs sustainable jobs and that are also deriving value from the Maine's marine living resources. And there are basically three overarching goals. We want to
You can advance
provide.
the next slide now if you.
Oh, sorry, yep, I forgot. So this slide just lists the main bullets, the main overarching goals to provide and support.
Okay, hold on, Bill. Hold on.
Yep.
Is anybody seeing slides?
Oh, here we go.
Hold
Maybe.
on.
Here we
There
go.
we go. Great. Go ahead.
Okay, so
we're not on the
let's-
slide you're talking about. So
Yeah,
maybe-
let's go down to, keep going. Next slide. There we are. Oh, one back. There we go. So basically, we're trying to provide support to sustain and grow the marine resource economy. We want to increase the harvest and the value of what's being harvested, and essentially increase the competitiveness of Maine's businesses, maximize resiliency through diversification, and also, of course, minimize the carbon footprint of the marine sector as we go forward. And a key point is that we want to try to, provide support for Maine's coastal communities through preservation and improvement of working waterfronts, which are absolutely key if we're going to maintain a vibrant marine economy.
Next slide. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with this slide. DMR puts this out every year, and it's a great visual tool to help understand the economic impact of Maine's marine economy. Directly to harvesters, the value of commercially harvested marine resources in Maine in 2019, and the 2020 numbers should be coming out within the next few weeks, I'm guessing, right around the Fisherman's Forum annually. Last year, that value was almost $674 million. $1.5 billion is the next level there. That's the estimate of the lobster industry beyond harvesters. So after what's paid to harvesters for what they land, there's another $1.5 billion of value just within the supply chain of the lobster fishery. That does not include tourism. And as Mick Devon used to like to point out, people don't visit Maine to eat chicken. They're here to eat Bill's oysters. They're here to eat our lobsters. They're here to eat all the wonderful seafood species that we have. So that's just within the supply chain. It does not include tourism. It does not include boat building, trap building, cage building, raft building, fuel docks, insurance, financing, chiropractors. You get the idea. The list goes on and on. This is of huge importance to Maine's overall economy. Our marine economy supports thousands and thousands of jobs, not just on the water, but throughout the state. Hugely important.
And needless to say, also a key part of Maine's identity.
No doubt. Next slide.
Next slide. So obviously, we're all facing some pretty steep challenges. We're certainly, we've been dealing with the pandemic over the last year. And I consider the pandemic just a pop quiz for climate change. And of course, there are all kinds of global trade pressures. Our state's marine sector, however, does have a track record of being able to respond to challenges. And we have a great opportunity now to lean in and really create jobs, develop new products, and expand markets. My favorite saying is that problems are the raw material of innovation. And I think right now is a time for Maine's marine resource economy to pull all the stops on innovation.
Yep.
Next slide.
So back in the 1800s, when Bill was getting Mook Sea Farm up off the ground, Maine was known as the breadbasket of New England. We see with this project, Maine becoming the seafood platter for all of America. Our seafood economy is poised to attract and retain more workers, pump money and investments into local economies, preserve the working characteristics of our coastal communities that attract millions of tourists and their dollars each year, expand market penetration both domestically and internationally with healthy, delicious, sustainable, and traceable seafood. Change is constant. as you can look back through time and see 50 years ago, our working waterfronts were dominated by groundfish, trawlers, and gill netters. Now it's lobster and aquaculture. Change will always be constant, but our working waterfronts remain the true fabric of Maine's coastal communities. Next slide.
So we've divided the work of this Sea Maine project into several committees. And so there's a data and benchmarking committee. And I think the point we want to get across here is that we kind of see our role in interfacing with the Marine Resources Committee as a source of information. We're going to be really defining the Maine marine economy with a lot of information that heretofore has not been really available. And we want to be able to make that available to you. We're going to be identifying opportunities and threats and setting measurable benchmarks for the industry to grow. Next slide. We're going to be, there's an emerging technology and new opportunities committee. And I think, again, these are going to be developing or trying to spur development of new products, new ways of thinking, trying to find synergies between sectors that are already here to be able to take advantage of cost savings and attract investment, foster more innovation and more entrepreneurship. Next slide. And then finally, well, there are two other committees. One is the workforce and talent development. We need to be really thinking. I know it's been sort of difficult to do during a pandemic when businesses have suffered so much, but it's now is the time to be thinking about what kind of we need going into the future to do all of this. And so we have a group that's working on that. And then finally, looking at analyzing, identifying species of products that have growth potential for the market and developing a strategy for how to market those products, including larger investment opportunities and much more. Next slide.
So to sum it all up, essentially, we're here today to partner with you, not only today, but into the future to sustainably strengthen the state's economy, while also increasing the marine sector's resiliency. The marine sector plays such a vital role to our state's economy, and we're excited about the future, and we're excited to work with you going forward, and we appreciate your time today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Ditto from me.
Of course, thank you very much. And we have a question from Representative Bloom.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Nice to see you, Bill Mook, and Kurt. I think that what you're doing is something that was one of in our climate report in the Maine Won't Wait plan, the 4-year plan, is about proposing a Maine Seafood Business Council, which I think is basically what you're doing. So I think that building on your work sounds like something that will help with the Climate Council's goals. Do you agree?
I agree, and Bill can speak more to this, but Bill and I were both on the Marine and Coastal Working Group of the Climate Council, and that exactly what you just brought up has been a topic of conversation and collaboration. So the wheels are already turning on that for sure.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that, really. Just that it is very much there's a lot of overlap there, and I think we need to figure out how to pull that together and do it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any more hands, and you kept within your time, allowing for technical difficulties. So thank you for that, and have a great day. Well, I know we'll be talking to you more. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. You all have a great day too. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. And Linda.
Next, we have Marissa McMahon of Manomet. She's on screen.
I see you now. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Great, thank you. Thank you and good morning, Senator Miramont, Representative McCreight, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Marine Resources. I just want to thank you for this opportunity to introduce myself and my organization. My name is Marissa McMahon, and I'm the Director of the Fisheries Division at Manomet. I'm also a native of Georgetown, Maine, which is where I'm joining you from today. My family has been fishing in Georgetown since the 1700s, and I'm actually a former commercial lobster fisher, which is what I did before I became a scientist. If you're new to Manomat, we are a nonprofit focused on empowering stakeholders through science. We were founded in 1969 as a bird observatory, and since then our work has branched out far beyond our headquarters in Plymouth, Massachusetts. Over the past 50 years, our science and research have expanded to focus on ecosystem management and resilience, shorebird conservation, sustainable forestry and agriculture, and educating tomorrow's leaders about the importance of the natural world. Although based in New England, we have staff and offices all over the Western Hemisphere, including Louisiana, Georgia, Maryland, Uruguay, Argentina, Colombia, Paraguay, Chile, and Honduras, to name a few. So while our work often has a very local focus, we are also able to bring a global perspective to everything we do. Manomat's Fisheries Division is based in Brunswick, Maine, and is driven by a vision of resilient ecosystems supporting vibrant coastal communities. Along those lines, we operate at the nexus of restoring coastal ecosystems, promoting sustainable fisheries, and developing innovative climate change adaptation strategies. We have a broad portfolio of work, but one key element driving a lot of it is this idea of diversification, which you've heard from many other presentations. We need diversified marine resources, fisheries, and seafood products to achieve resiliency in Maine in light of a very rapidly changing climate. Along those lines, we're working to develop fisheries for emerging and invasive species like green crabs and black sea bass. We're exploring new aquaculture growing techniques and species like quahogs. In addition to this, we conduct coastal nearshore monitoring of the rocky intertidal, mudflat, and kelp ecosystems to better understand climate impacts to these vital systems, which has been identified as an important part of the Maine Won't Wait Climate Action Plan. We also work in restoration in measuring the impacts of river herring restoration, and we also are working to develop strategies to support adaptive co-management in Maine's shellfish industry. We incorporate fishers and harvesters and growers into all of our work from inception to completion. They are the ones most intricately tied to these ecosystems and most impacted by the changes occurring in them. We can't manage, conserve, mitigate, or adapt without them at the table. We also strongly believe in educating future generations and work with K through 12 undergraduate and graduate students in many of our programs. We are also a co-organizer of the Casco Bay Regional Shellfish Working Group and a member of the Down East Fisheries Partnership. And I also serve as the science member to the Shellfish Advisory Council. We hope that the members of this council will feel free to reach out to us with questions, and we're happy to provide expertise on issues that fall within our scope of work. You can also find more info on our website, which is www.manomat.org, along with contact info for our fisheries team. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I'll note this as a day that the impossible happened. I didn't think I'd live long enough to hear a presentation in the Marine Resources Committee that didn't use gender biased language. So thank you for that. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thanks for joining us.
And next we have Kennebec River Biosciences that I've just brought on screen.
Great, welcome. Where? Everybody's always welcome, but
he's no longer an attendee, so he's, oh yeah, down the bottom.
There we go.
Hey, welcome.
Thank you very much. I don't know what my background looks like. I had a green screen, but with a great graphic. But
like
Senator
Hunter Thompson's, who was the guy that did drawings for Hunter Thompson? And earlier we had somebody was speaking from a poor reception area, and it sounded like an acid trip. Of course, portrayed by movies.
Oh, there we go. We got the Seth
Yes,
Barry set that up.
Stedman, Ralph Stedman. That looks like a Stedman. Thank you for lightening up the day.
Senator Miramont, Representative McCreight, members of the committee. My name is Bill Kelleher, and I'm here as the CEO of Kennebec River Biosciences, located in Richmond, and I live in Topsom. I appreciate this opportunity to come before you today. Kennebec River Biosciences is an aquatic animal health biosciences company which focuses on both farm and wild aquatic species and has been around for 25 years. We work to manage pathogen risks in a variety of commercially important fish and shellfish species and help companies and resource agencies to help their animals stay healthy. We also have a couple folks from our company that are on the Aquatic Animal Health Technical Committee that advises Commissioner Kelleher with a range of issues as well. Kennebec Biosciences serves hundreds of commercial aquaculture operations, wild fisheries managers, and university and nonprofit partners across North America and on other continents. We provide diagnostic testing, import-export inspections, and veterinary solutions to protect the health of fish, shellfish, and crustaceans. The company also manufactures custom vaccines and aquatic probiotics to protect aquatic animal health in both farmed and wild populations. From the Pacific Northwest to Maine, we have worked with wild fisheries managers to protect wild populations. We've helped Maine towns open clam flats and DMR to determine which baits are safe for the lobster industry. And the Maine Fish Health and with Maine Fish Health professionals to address infectious salmon anemia, which affected Atlantic salmon and which is considered a tremendous success story within the US and around the world. In Maine, we also help ensure sustainability, health, and success for larger net pen and land-based aquaculture, and for farmers of species from American eel to yellowtail amberjack to marine ornamentals, and of course, shellfish. Throughout the US and internationally, we serve a range of commercial farms, natural resource stocking programs in a number of states, similar to those run by Maine's IF&W and tribal farms. Maine's potential for growth in the aquaculture sector is tremendous. Today, over 90% of all seafood consumed in the US comes from overseas. These fish and shellfish are not subject to the same practices used by our own fishermen and farmers. The state also has some of the best and most trusted commercial, university, and public sector professionals. Maine also has the opportunity to be a leader in the emerging marine bioscience space, allowing companies to add value to their harvest, reducing waste, and further strengthening Maine coastal economies. Today, our wild fisheries are threatened by overfishing, the shifting of currents, rapid changes in temperature, loss of crucial feedstock, and ocean acidification. Fortunately, our working waterfronts can still thrive if we are rational and open to change. Implemented responsibly, as Maine has a long history of doing, aquaculture can alleviate the pressures on wild populations and can diversify our marine economies, offering jobs and an economic future for all who work in and inhabit the coast of Maine. In closing, thank you for your service to the state. Please think of KRB as an independent and neutral science-based resource as you make your decisions over the next couple years. I or any of our scientific or regulatory staff will be happy to come back anytime. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelleher. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, we know where to find you. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
And next we have Captain Peter Fallon of Maine Association of Charter Boat Captains. He's
You
on
said
screen.
Dr. Fallon, is that so? Welcome, Dr. Fallon.
No, Captain. I said.
Captain. Welcome, Captain, Dr. Captain. I've upgraded you or downgraded, depends on your perspective.
Mr. Fallon, you need to unmute.
There we go.
There we are.
Okay. Thank you, Senator Mearmont, Representative McCrate, members of the Joint Committee on Marine Resources. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in your orientation. My name is Peter Fallon, and I'm the president of the Maine Association of Charter Boat Captains. I'm pleased to be able to share with you some information about an important sector of Maine's marine economy and community. The Maine Association of Charter Boat Captains is a non-profit trade association that represents owners and operators of vessels who carry passengers for hire on sightseeing, fishing, and ecotourism trips. We help clients locate qualified professional charter services. We share best practices for safe and successful operation with our members. We partner in public and private research activities, and we provide a unified voice for members on issues that affect our businesses, and Maine's marine resources. Latest DMR and NOAA estimates for charter boat and party boat direct sales revenue for fishing trips in Maine is around $8.6 million. That does not include sales associated with non-fishing trips that we may conduct, such as lighthouse tours, whale watching excursions, and other eco trips. If we compare our $8.6 million in sales revenue to commercial fisheries landings values, we're actually fourth in the state, behind only lobster, elvers, and soft shell clams, ahead of oysters, scallop, tuna, urchin, herring, menhaden, and others. And that's just direct sales revenue. Of course, like commercial fishermen, we spend money on boats, supplies, bait, trucks, business expenses, and more. Additionally, we host clients from within Maine and from away, many who travel to our states or towns specifically to take trips with us. These people spend more money with local businesses on meals, lodging, and shopping. Most of us are owner-operators, though we're not required to be so. Our small businesses depend on healthy marine ecosystems, a vibrant tourism industry, and the infrastructure of our working waterfront. We're subject to regulations at both the state and the federal level. The Maine Department of Marine Resources is the principal organization that oversees our operations from a state perspective. We're required to hold U.S. Coast Guard licenses and a Maine Guides license. For those of us that offer fishing trips, we rely upon species managed at the state and federal level by a number of different organizations, such as the New England Fisheries Management Council, the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission, NOAA Fisheries, and of course, Maine DMR. We have a long-standing, healthy working relationship with DMR. Commissioner Kelleher ran a charter fishing business on the Kennebec River long before joining the department and knows the needs and challenges of our operations. We're active in helping to shape regulations at the department level and at the various federal organizations that manage the fisheries in which we participate. In the fisheries management world, we're often regulated under the broad category of recreational anglers. However, in some instances, we have rules and seasons specific to a for-hire or party charter boat status. Many of us participate in harvesting fish that are not for our own consumption. Our clients are taking those home, while others operate on a strictly catch and release basis. We run some trips that may include commercial sale of catches. And we also have members who run both charters and fish commercially on separate trips. There's a significant void in Maine for an organized voice for recreational saltwater anglers, and our members often serve as a conduit for messages about conservation management and advocacy. There are an average of 1.75 million saltwater recreational trips per year in our state. 1.75 million. That includes trips on charter and party boats, private vessels, and shore outings. 2016 data published by NOAA estimates that the overall recreational saltwater fishery in Maine is directly responsible for almost 800 full-time jobs, $73 million in direct sales, and an overall economic impact somewhere between $133 million and $156 million. We're an important part of a valuable sector of our marine and tourism economy. Some of the challenges that we currently face include COVID-19 impacts on tourism, pandemic-related state and local budget impacts, climate change impacts on the ocean environment, offshore wind power development, growth in aquaculture facilities that may limit access to shallow water fishing grounds, and of course, abundance of game fish that our anglers seek: striped bass, bluefin tuna, haddock, cod, other ground fish, and tied to that is an adequate population of forage fish that sustains and attracts those species. The majority of our members target striped bass on some or all of their fishing trips. They are the most important saltwater game fish on the entire East Coast and here in Maine. According to the organization that manages striped bass, ASMFC, they are currently overfished and overfishing is occurring. Here in Maine, relative to most other coastal states, we have a very limited number of species that sustain our recreational fishery. A healthy striped bass fishery is critical to the overall well-being of recreational saltwater fishing in Maine. It is our lobster fishery, if you will. Over the next 2 years, ASMFC will craft a new amendment to the striped bass management plan that will determine the future of this fishery for more than the next decade. You should know that Maine has been a leader in advocating for responsible management of this species by the Commission. But current measures adopted by the Commission have failed to meet their own minimum standards for the status of striped bass. We look forward to our Maine representatives at ASMFC continuing to push for more responsible management that we need to restore this stock. Thank you again for the opportunity to introduce our organization and industry, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have now or at any time in the future.
Thank you, Captain Fallon. I think we hear from you at ASMFC time.
Yes, you do.
Yep. And great to have you here. Any
Thank
questions?
you for what you do there too.
Yeah, and good work gets done. It's nice. I see no questions, so we know where to find you, and thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Next, we have Robin Haddock Seeley from Rockweed Coalition.
And then
Coming
two
on
more
screen.
after that, correct?
Yes, actually one more.
One more after that, good. So just for reference, committee members, we'll be done in about a half hour, just so you know. So we're not going to take a break. We'll keep going, and welcome. Thanks for being here. And you're muted, Miss Seeley. I don't know what you look like. You look like rockweed, but other than that, you're muted. Letting the seaweed speak for itself.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much. And Senator Miramont, Representative McCreight, and the rest of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to introduce the Rockweed Coalition to you today. We don't always appear before you every legislative session, and there's some new committee members, so I'm glad for the opportunity. Describing Maine's coastal seaweeds as underwater forest in 1955, Rachel Carson said, "The trees of the forest are the large seaweeds known as rockweed." I'm Dr. Robin Hadlock Seeley, as I said, and I live in Pembroke on Cobscook Bay. Today I'm here representing the Rockweed Coalition, where I serve as the advising scientist and outreach coordinator. Our mission is to promote conservation of intertidal marine habitat, especially rockweed, to support Maine's fisheries and wildlife through public education and advocacy. Rockweed, as many or all of you know, is the dominant brown intertidal seaweed that covers much of our rocky shoreline, has a climate mitigating role in storing carbon, and provides feeding and sheltering habitat to at least 100 species in the Gulf of Maine. Next slide. I guess I can't operate the slides.
Okay.
Next slide, please.
Lynn, are you doing it?
I do not have control of it, no.
Neither do I.
Okay.
Huh. Oh, I guess I click. Okay, got it. Rockweed services include sheltering at least 21 commercial fish species, including striped bass that we just heard about, and lobster. And after the seaweed decomposes and forms detritus, serving as food for scallops. Fish species of conservation or cultural importance that use rockweed besides cod are rainbow smelt, Atlantic salmon, and alewives. Thriving commercially vital shellfish.
Yes.
Representative Scott Landry, yes. Representative Randall Hall.
Yes.
Representative Randall Hall, yes. Representative Maggie O'Neill.
I have no idea.
I think it's
I'll-
Senator Maxman. Now she's muted.
Go ahead.
Thriving commercially vital shellfish beds in Cobscook Bay have been linked to the abundance of rockweed in Cobscook Bay. Rockweed gets the attention of several state agencies here in Maine. To the Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, rockweed is important for habitat for species of conservation concern under its Wildlife Action Plan. To our state parks under the Department of Ag, Conservation and Forestry, it's important habitat for wildlife species that delight park visitors, such as the species in front of you. To DEP, it's a saltwater wetland protected under the Natural Resources Protection Act against all kinds of disturbance except commercial harvesting. And of course, to DMR, rockweed is important as a commercially harvested resource. And so moving on to what it looks like when it's cut, this is an underwater view from last September, right after a machine harvester had gone through and cut most of the shore of an island in Cobscook Bay, showing the so-called rockweed tree in the background and the blunt ends of the machine cut rockweed in the front of the slide. This is a schematic showing about a typical rockweed tree from Cobscook, about 4 feet tall. Next to the bit of rockweed left, cut to the regulation 16 inches. Again, is from September 2020. So cutting a rockweed tree like this removes about 70% of the height of the tree and about 90% of its mass. And on the right, I've plotted out the increase in height as the seaweed recovers from being cut. It would take 20 years for that tree to regain its original height. But as we've heard before, these trees are cut about every 3 years. And if this tree were cut 3 years later, it would only have regained about half of its height. So if the rockweed beds are not allowed to grow back to their original height before being cut again, they don't recover their full habitat services and ability to absorb carbon, which is actually 14 times higher than eelgrass, which is why the National Organic Standards Board harvest that include delaying reharvest until the rockweed bed starts to approach its original three-dimensional structure. So for a bit of history, Rockweed Coalition members have proposed and supported formation of the Cobscook Bay Rockweed Management Area Law of 2009, the Rockweed Management Plan that was under discussion in 2014, the Rockweed Working Group in 2015. And in 2015, members of the coalition became plaintiffs in a court case to determine whether rockweed is a public resource or privately owned. And in 2019, the Maine Supreme Court decided that rockweed is owned by the landowner. And to clear up any confusion about the status of the court case, the case is not pending. There are no further appeals. There's no new court case on this matter. And the Supreme Court decision does not require any action by the legislature to be valid. And as Commissioner Kelleher himself stated a year ago, the court's 2019 decision is the quote, law of the land, unquote. The federal government actually does a better job putting a higher value on the ecological services provided by intact rockweed beds, defining rockweed as essential fish habitat from NOAA for juvenile cod. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service prohibits rockweed cutting in wildlife refuges. The National Park Service doesn't allow it on the shores of Acadia National Park. And as I said, after a 5-year process, USDA has proposed new restrictions on harvesting seaweeds that go into organic farming. Since the 2019 Maine Supreme Court decision, we've monitored compliance with the decision and documented widespread taking of rockweed without owner permission in Cobscook Bay. And many reports have come to us about unauthorized harvest in other areas of the coast, including Hog Island in Bremen, where the National Audubon Society has an island, and multiple incidents during the winter of 2020 in the Friendship area. We believe that conservation of Maine's underwater rockweed forest, as Rachel Carson described it, benefits all of us who care about the coast for mitigation of climate change as blue carbon, for habitat for wildlife of state conservation concern, for tourism, and maybe most importantly, to support commercial fisheries. We need to do a better job enforcing the court case that helps landowners become a partner in this goal to protect rockweed and its key coastal functions, including rockweed's role in supporting fisheries and in Maine's climate plan. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you for being with us. And I don't see any hands from the committee. And again, we know where to find you if we have questions. And thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks again.
Bye-bye.
And next we have from Protect Maine's Fishing Heritage Foundation, Crystal Canny and John Lewis, both being brought on screen.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you guys so much for having me this morning. Good morning, Chairman Miramont, Chairwoman McCrate, and distinguished members of the Marine Resources Committee. My name is Crystal Canny. I am the Executive Director of Protect Maine's Fishing Heritage Foundation and a lifelong resident of Maine. Our board is comprised of lobster men and women, a dedicated environmentalist, and a financial accountant. I wanted you to know, after hearing Ms. Maker's testimony or speech, that we are only concerned with in-water aquaculture at this point. We have not taken a position on land, nor do we intend to this legislative session. I've lived in Maine for nearly the entirety of my life, and I feel great empathy for Maine people who struggle to make ends meet, having experienced it in my own family, everyone from loggers to shoe workers to my mother's generation of teachers. At 5, I watched my grandmother, who made shoes at Old Town at Kagan Lown, come home, hands stained from dye, smelling of chemicals, excited to let us know she received a 5-cent an hour raise. Why is this important today? My grandmother's spirit was the Maine spirit. Do what you have to do to survive, and she successfully did it. Unfortunately, it was much tougher than it had to be because the cards were stacked against her. While she was a shoe worker, eventually the shoes she produced were made in a foreign land. Her employer sold to a bigger corporation so they could be made more cheaply. Right now, we are at the crossroads regarding the jobs located on our coastal waters. Our Maine coast is one of the most precious resources we have. It feeds families up and down the state, lobstermen, fishermen, aquaculturists, and those who work in the tourist industry. The future of these jobs and the assets that we own as a state hang in the balance. We're seeing aquaculture leases grow year after year, and many lobstermen are losing more and more of the ocean's bottom for their catch. This state's economy has prided itself on local ownership. However, the largest aquaculture lease holder in the state, 646 acres, is owned by a foreign corporation. Another is being proposed by Norwegian investors at the foot of Acadia National Park in Gouldsboro. This unbridled growth of aquaculture is raising concerns about who benefits from these leases. Protect Maine has gotten calls from lobstermen, small aquaculturists, environmentalists, and those who own property along the coast, concerned about their livelihoods and the future of their families. To be straightforward, when Protect Maine's Fishing Heritage Foundation got underway, we were an organization that just heard primarily from lobstermen, but that is not the case anymore. I can tell you on a personal level, though, that with all this contact and with all this outreach, the inherent conflict is just escalating up and down the coast of Maine, and I'm going to leave that to John Lewis to tell you more about it. There is much at stake for the future of Maine to not get in there and fight to find a consensus path forward to help reduce the conflict and work together. I had great hope that Chairwoman McCrate's legislation last session around a study, one which, by the way, hadn't been conducted in the last 17 years, would be passed. Unfortunately, the aquaculture lobby lined up in full force to say a study wasn't warranted, just like they're lining up today to say a statewide planning conversation isn't needed. Despite their assertions to the contrary, conflicts on the coast continue to grow. Let me set the record straight, because I've heard this over and over again, that we're anti-aquaculture. We are not anti-aquaculture. We believe there is a place for everyone to benefit from the coastal waters, but we desperately need smart planning to have that happen. Please know that our work is not solely focused on legislative policy. We introduced a bill last session. We will support a bill if it comes out of the revisor's office this session. In our short time of incorporation, we've raised $50,000 for lobstermen during the pandemic, and we've aided those affected by the loss of a Maine commercial vessel in Provincetown. We've also collected rulemaking petitions, and we've attended, I have 50 aquaculture hearings. I think it's more like 100, to be honest. We also pride ourselves on being proactive. If I personally hear from an aquaculturist or from another small aquaculturist, I reach out, I discuss the mission, I make sure that they know we're not anti-aquaculture, but that we have concerns. And we really feel that a statewide conversation is what is needed. I will close by saying this. The lobstermen are a lot like my grandmother. They work really hard. The majority don't have the time or the energy at the end of the day to participate in a process of shaping policy. Because of that, their concerns, their interests, and their voices are often left out of the debate. You wonder why people feel like the system is stacked against them. I don't. I know why. Protect Maine is here to raise those concerns, represent those interests, and hopefully channel proactively their voices. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them.
I don't see any questions from the committee. So thank you for being here. And I can't remember if I only gave you 10 minutes. You either have 6 minutes and 40 seconds left or 1 minute and 40 seconds.
Go, John.
Yeah, Senator Miramont, Representative McCreight, members of the committee. I've written something here so I can be clear and succinct. I think I can get this done in about 2 minutes. I am John Lewis. I live in Boothbay. I worked at the Department of Marine Resources for 23 years and retired in May 2020 as the director of the Division of Aquaculture. I worked as a scientist diver and spent my tenure both figuratively and literally immersed in aquaculture. I worked all along the coast with all types of aquaculture. Please allow me to recognize the exemplary work performed by the DMR aquaculture staff. They work tirelessly as public servants and have my utmost respect and admiration. While this committee may be aware of the quantity and quality of work they perform, much of the public is not. Let me also acknowledge that I am a strong supporter of aquaculture. It was not that long ago that we had robust fisheries for shrimp, urchins, blue mussels, cod, flounder, other groundfish, and herring. Atlantic salmon were once abundant in our rivers. The ecology of our marine environment is far from what it once was. Its lack of diversity promotes fragility. We deal mostly with remnants of our wild resources, and in the face of accelerating climate change, aquaculture is an appropriate and needed response. Aquaculture provides good food, economic opportunity, community resilience, and in many instances, beneficial ecological services. In the last 5 years, an increased level of funding resources have been dedicated to research and development, job creation, promotion, and training for new entrants to aquaculture. Both the number of lease applications and the acreage requested by applicants have increased commensurately. So where is the problem? As aquaculture has increased, the level of conflict up and down the coast has increased. The number of people, be they landowners, lobstermen, boaters, or other users of the water, seem to be increasingly dissatisfied or in some cases disenfranchised with the leasing process. Anger is building at an unacceptable rate. For the past 23 years of my experience, the repeated question at public hearings is, what is the plan? How many leases can be granted in the bay or river? What does the future look like? In the absence of answers to these questions, people quickly object and use what resources they have available to fight an application. An us versus them enemy mentality quickly develops. This is serving no one well. I affiliated myself with Protect Maine's Fishing Heritage to advocate for a statewide discussion with all interested parties to identify the sources of these conflicts. Is it the process? Lack of familiarity as to how engage in the process? Distrust of DMR? Concern about environmental impacts? Use conflicts? Noise, light, aesthetics, or something else? Only when the roots of the conflicts are identified can practical solutions be offered. a statewide discussion is needed to aid in finding acceptable solutions. DMR, as the primary regulatory body, should be provided a significant increase in funding and personnel to develop increased public confidence in aquaculture. Without that, we are feeding conflict. Aquaculture is a new way of living on the earth in Maine. It is not a small issue. It is time to invest. Thank you. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Again, I see no hands. And we do know where to reach you if we have questions about your specific areas of interest. So thank you for being here today. And
no questions.
No questions.
There are truly no questions.
I swear, I wouldn't lie to you. I do a lot of things.
Well,
but
I hope there's well, I hope there's at least some thinking going on.
I know there is that. I've actually
Thank
had
you.
a great thought go through in the last several hours. Okay. So that concludes our meeting.
Representative Hutchins has his hand raised.
Look at that, he does, thank you. And Representative Hutchins, go ahead. He shamed you into asking a question, right?
Yes, I thank you, Chair, for recognizing me. I just wanted to mention that John Lewis was a great help to us here in Penobscot years ago in a aquaculture lease. He's excellent working with the public and was very helpful in settling some problems that we had in aquaculture here on the river. Thank you.
Good to hear. All right, a statement instead of a question. We're gonna have to let it go at that. Thanks a lot, Representative Hutchins and everyone. Okay, we'll let you guys out. Were they still the last presentation?
Yes, no
Okay.
one else. There were a couple others, but they did not show up.
All right, that's what it is. Great. All right, we're back to the remaining committee members who are here. You know, normally about this time we talk about some stuff or get together and talk about bills we have that need sponsors as we went out the door or whatever. Doesn't happen, so I'm going to give us a little chance here. We'll still stay on the audio part if we stop the video streaming. So it won't be like that'll go away, but I don't think they need to watch us talk about some of this, or if they do, we'll leave it on, whichever you'd rather.